Hello there. This is Wes Ball, director of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
And I'm Eric Winquist, visual effects supervisor of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
And Dan Zimmerman, editor, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yay. This is hopefully a popular feature, at least it is online for now, where we're going to watch the movie in both its raw form and with a little on the top, the final image. Just to kind of see what the hell goes into making these movies. This commentary of the three of us, I think, will be a little bit more focused on the post and visual effects side of things. But, as we go, I'm sure we'll start talking about other stuff, about shooting and everything too. But, it's kind of like our old school commentary tracks that I miss so much now.
I miss these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's a good way to put it on top of these, on top of this little feature here. So this first scene, someone asked me, was this always planned? But it kind of always was, to start us with where we left off, give the end to Caesar, turn this ape into a legend, essentially. And this is one of the earliest storyboards that I did before we even had a script, actually.
Yeah, you had this done pretty much basically before I got on.
Yeah. But it's all full CG. How about that, Eric?
CG, but based on a real place.
Yeah, that's true. You went out in somewhere in Australia, right? And shot kind of the...
Yeah, it was down on at the very kind of towards the bottom of New South Wales, near the border of Victoria. We went and climbed a ski field.
Right.
Threadbow.
And scanned the rocks and
there.
stuff.
There's this amazing rocky tours, and so we scanned the shit out of the place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But you got to bring back the old characters, and it's all the fire, obviously the apes, but also the environment itself. I had done one, I think, concept kind of animation in Unreal for the end shot, which was in our cut for a long, long time. Some people believe that was Noah there. That's not. I love the lighting of it, though. It's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If you look closely, you can see little hairs singeing on Caesar's face.
That's right.
It's crazy.
And the fire itself, we'll talk more about it, but just the CG fire that you did, in addition to all the water and elements and stuff, it's pretty cool.
It was a good push.
So I always love this first cut. It's amazing. So little known fact, I guess, I'm not sure if anyone's caught it yet, but these shots were essentially licensed from Samsara documentary. One of my favorite, not a documentary, but I guess it's like an art. I'm not sure what Samsara is really considered. But
well, the shots were really beautiful, and they encapsulated the world you were trying to go for. I mean, they were slightly augmented.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have to go shoot something, and then I think it was Matt. So let me just reach out to the producer and director and see if they would just be interested in licensing footage.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? That's never going to happen. Now, this shot, of course, we shot in Australia.
Yeah, this was the Man River, way up at the top of New South Wales.
It's one of the first
only
shots
helicopter shot we have on the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the first shots that you guys did, I think, right? Because it was in the trailer first.
It's an early turnover, yeah.
And the reason actually why we went on the bottom screen, went to this sort of animation version, was because the plate, actually, if you remember, got to a certain point where we couldn't use it anymore because it just stopped, and we needed it for it to keep going. So
that was another case where that was one of those earlier, before we even had a script, I had this opening in mind where that reveal shot I kind of did in Unreal really quickly, and that was in the cut for a long time until we got the plate and Eric started, making it amazing looking.
Well, these are the sequences that are really kind of actually the most fun to cut, because you're not cutting in a traditional form, right? It's a constant back and forth with Weta and Eric and Paul to figure out timing and whatever. I mean, obviously there are performances that were captured for our characters and whatnot, but sometimes there weren't. So it was a lot of back and forth to figure out exactly how the sequence could get all put together.
We should clarify as well, Paul's story. Paul is Paul's story. Our animation supervisor at Weta did an awesome job.
But yeah, pretty cool thing that this is, again, basically the first 10 minutes of the movie is full CG, which was fun. I've always wanted to do a mocap movie. But I think it's great.
This was, working through this space we were on this for months. Just really working the look depth side of things. I mean, that tree there is my favorite tree in the movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, people think that's real. I remember we went to the mix, and the sound guys, they hadn't been part of the process, and they just thought we shot this on a real place, and then we added CG apes, but no, it's all CG. All the wind in the leaves, which is just helps so much. All the bugs in the air, it's great stuff.
And it's interesting to note, as you look on the bottom, throughout the film, sometimes there's little windows that pop up, with, whatever, or you'll sometimes see like dissolves between, takes and whatever. It's really because you're basically cutting the performance of the film. There's not really a shot that you're looking at, right? It's just the performances of the actors
and the rhythm and timing,
and the rhythm and timing. That's what you're putting together. And so it actually kind of makes the, options limitless in a way of how to put this thing together, because you can just, basically sometimes I would just cut without any images at all and just make it more like a radio play, and then turn on all the images and see, what they were. Cause I know that when you were capturing Wes, a lot of sometimes there were 6, 8, 9 cameras on all this stuff, that would hopefully represent what a shot could look like, or at least an angle could look like. But, for the most part, it didn't matter because you were really just capturing the performance.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, if it worked out, the actor could do this once, and I would have all my cameras that I need, essentially, because the cameras are after, essentially performance stuff.
I was going to say to that point, Dan, I mean, I think the interesting about these kinds of this performance capture kind of film is it really comes down to the distillation of this editing process that's been happening since the dawn of cinema, right? Where editors have always been picking the best takes of any particular part, but you often had to sort of cut away and then come back to, the better part of the take. Whereas with this kind of approach, we can actually blend those performances together into the best version of every part of the film.
And do my thing, which maybe is I love long takes. Exactly. I love unbroken cameras. Sometimes it's to a fault, but whatever. But I love being able to do that and design these kind of shots like there. That was kind of an afterthought. Like, we can come down and find, Anaya there. Some of this stuff was also recaptured because we kind of got a stab at it during regular production. But then we came back, in December, and shot some more little elements that we needed, which is kind of cool. We didn't do any real traditional reshoots. It was all just mocap reshoots.
Yeah.
Where we just fly to New Zealand.
One insert. Yeah.
Which one? Oh, yeah. One insert of the mouse.
Yeah. But you're right, Eric. It's really, it's crazy because, again, for me, it was a massive learning curve because, like you said, a lot of times you're handcuffed with the performance that you have. And if an actor either flubs a line or, whatever, you can actually just blend. You can just cut that flub out and blend back into, the pickup of the performance or a new performance totally and create it that way. It's pretty amazing.
It was one of the last shots, wasn't it? That we turned over. I mean, we delivered.
I mean, we often cringe when you do that over and over and over again.
Of course.
Every time there's a blend, and now
we
got to
keep you guys on your toes.
The animation of that performance together.
Well, at first, I was like, "No, we're not doing that at all, guys." And by the end of it, like, screw it, we're cutting it all up.
That was the directive. It was like, "Dude, we can't do this." And I'm like, "Okay." So when I first showed Wes the movie, it was done very, very strategically and not really often at all. And then later down the road, Eric, you had said like, "No, it's okay if you can do it. Like, just you want to get it. You don't want to do."
By the
too
way,
much
people don't notice it in the back of the shot. All these ruins that we put into that rock wall, it just kind of goes right by you.
Yeah, totally. And then once you said that to Wes, the floodgate was open. Unfortunately,
floodgates, bro. Yes, it's my fault. Correct.
And this was cool this is one of those rare cases. We do a couple times in the movie where we actually just use the shot, and then you guys have to paint him out, which is crazy.
And paint out all the stuff in the background.
Any people visual effects wise knows how difficult that shot was to paint out.
Yeah. Well, it's not that rare.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of them, right?
We had to use. Yeah, I think we had to use these performance takes a lot more in this movie than we did in the previous one.
It's because the cameras are just so I don't think there's really many cameras like that in the other movies where it's just so active. I mean, basically there's a 180,
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but the previous movies, did a lot of motion control, right? I mean, very sort of stable moves.
We used it where we could. I wouldn't say we did it a lot, but it was so unwieldy occasionally.
It's so hard to use.
But not as much handheld in this movie, or like as in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, we should talk about the three of these guys, Owen, Travis, and Lydia. They did a great job. This is their first experience, basically, with motion capture. And they just kind of took on the role.
And this scene was day one.
Yeah, this was. Yeah. Well, there was 2 pre-shoots, I guess, before this, but this was considered our first official day of shooting. And it was a nightmare in that mud. To have a whole crew, because how tight it is that's how it was. So with every angle, we had to shoot for the first day, all the angles looking into the tunnel, and then the next day, all the angles looking outside the tunnel, and all the crew is, a crew of 50 people is behind every camera. It just tucked into the sides of this crazy little environment, and it's just mud that's like 6 inches thick, and it was just it's a great way to start the shoot. Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, when you talk to all the actors in the movie, the first thing they say is how freeing it can be to be, in an environment like this, as far as like being captured, because all the vanity goes away. So you can actually, you're not worrying about any of that other stuff. Like, oh my gosh, did slobber come out or whatever it may be.
Look at that paint job.
Yeah.
Like having to get him out. Holy crap. And then putting the buildings behind the trees, I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
By the way, this shot all these shots look great in Ultra HD or whatever it is, UHD disc, where you can actually reach into the skies now and you can see the skies. And it's like, I was really worried about it, but it turns out like it looks great. So,
but having real environment that the CG goes into, I always find is the most successful, because it just, there's a level that you have to achieve because there's so much real around it. And I mean, you guys are just the kings of doing it. So,
it helps tie everything in. I mean, these are live action movies. They're not animated films.
Yeah.
Of course, we started with. Like,
you should notice there, by the way,
full CG,
that the faces of these, there's little kids on set that we shot, but we weren't face capturing them. So we had to get performers to do the faces of the kids. And so as you can see, that's Lydia, Travis, and Owen playing the little kids that they're talking with. And then we had like my kids and other kids come in and loop the voices themselves. But you can see there's another good shot where we actually had to just paint Owen out, because we never got a clean plate that felt that way.
But it's also just so incredible how the facial capture of what it can do now. I mean, it almost perfectly, replicates what the actors were doing on set, and it's just, mind-boggling.
This stuff all came together.
Well, I mean, part of the thing that really helps there is that when we're actually making these characters, we're looking for all sorts of unique traits about the actor's face that we can kind of incorporate into the characters.
You feel their likeness in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I talk to the actors, I'm like, oh my God, I could see me in there. Or I talked to, Owen's parents, and they're like, we could see him all over the place. That was a compliment.
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate compliment.
I mean, you can see there that it is what Owen is doing, and these actors are really driving it. Obviously, there's a ton of artistry happening in the kind of conversion to ape, but it starts there with their choices, It makes it feel real.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing to stress here is like, this is, the technology gets a lot of focus, but, the facial animators at Weta are, among the best in the world at what they do. And we really rely on that artistry, because it's not, not feed a bunch of dots into a black box and out comes an ape.
Yeah,
right. There's very much the hand of the artist in here to translate,
because it's not a one-to-one
what
thing.
the ape is doing.
The brows don't move the same. There's lots of different things that just don't work. I don't remember this being, I guess, I forget. Do we use the clean plate here? Because
we did.
Yeah, I guess we retimed or something. So we do a lot of that with the clean plates, where we'll retime them during the shot. So you can see, it's all based off real shots. It's kind of cool. It's a big drone shot. Obviously, you know what hair we're looking at.
Really dig how much that one looks like the concept art that we had.
Oh, yeah.
The concept art, there was just so much concept art that we could just lean on. It was beautiful stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do something with all that stuff, because it was really talented guys came on, and it really helped kind of visualize this whole thing from the get-go. A lot of it started while the script was being written. So I love that process where you'll kind of work on that stuff, and the script will get influenced by the concept art sometimes, It was a cool set too by Dan Dorrance. Built this giant thing. It was huge. It's hard to move around in, but I thought it looked pretty cool.
That always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And the eagle.
Well, when you just have, random people with balls on sticks just running around.
For me, Neo is one of the characters that, or Koro here, one of the characters that changed the most, converting him to an ape. Like, we were like not sure. It was early on when we were cutting this scene. I remember we're like, is this gonna work? And like, he's walking funny and talking funny, and it's like it's a little hard to take it seriously, and it's kind of raw form, And then I remember at one point the Koro model, we finished up the model and then you put it into a shot and it's like, oh wow, it just suddenly became a different thing, and it worked.
It really is a magic trick. I mean, and it is very difficult to put these movies together and watch them because, again,
They're so incomplete.
yeah, and just everything about the visuals is telling you not to engage in the story. So you have
everything
to
pushing
really-
you out.
Yeah, you
I love
really
this. Is
have
my favorite,
to-
one of my favorite shots in the movie,
Yeah,
by the way.
the best of those shots.
It's so real, and like the lighting and just everything. It's great.
We did not.
One thing that helped a lot with Koro is his character is based on literally just we found a
Yeah,
great
a real
looking
ape,
chimp
yeah.
and built that chimp.
Yeah, really, really distinct looking face. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if we find that picture, you're like, oh, that's him. There he is. It's like that's that ape.
Must be after tomorrow's.
Hopefully that chimp's agent doesn't.
That's right.
looking for us.
Where's my? It was all based off stills, right? Just where you kind of just take your cues from it.
Yep. Yeah, the thing it always it always seems to be a more successful approach when we quote unquote cast these characters. Find an ape that we really like for the role instead of trying to dream up something out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
This blind. Echo.
Yeah. Then also what you're seeing here, sometimes we're showing the performances, but we also had to shoot clean plates for almost all of these shots. We basically shoot the movie twice. And most times that's what we use to put the CG into. Not always, but often. So it was the bane of my existence. I hated clean plates.
Yeah, that was my memory. You coming in going, all right, guys, we work fast. We do 30 setups a day.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no,
well,
we're not
maybe
going
not
to.
on this.
Yeah, we get 12. So that was new for me. It just meant less shots and
Yeah, I was grateful.
less swings at things. This stuff always felt super real. Always liked it.
Oh, the lighting was great, and
There's actually a big giant lamp there creating that light in the back of the tree and a little bit on them. But feels natural enough, I think.
And we got you your waterfall.
That's right. I thought it'd be so cool to be the waterfall back there. Because that's where they get their water from. And there was in the script at one point, there was like some river nearby they would be riding through. So we had to set up that. But that got cut anyway long ago.
Well, the thing that was really convenient was that waterfall was actually on that location. It was like way off screen left. And so I put my drone up one day and just shot some video and we put it in the shots.
You're right. It's awesome. It was a cool location too. It was a bitch to get up there. It was just like, trucks couldn't get up the hill. We destroyed the hill coming up the road coming up the hill and kind of pissed off the neighbors a little bit. But there's actually like right behind Suna there, right behind her head, there's a guy's house, basically. He just lives there. It's amazing. Amazing location. But
Yellow Rock Road.
Yeah, Yellow Rock Road. But this is I always liked Suna in this scene because Lydia comes through so much, I think, in some of those shots. And look at that shot of Travis back there. Actually, no, it's the next one, isn't it?
yeah, dude, he
Like what he's doing, he looks like an ape.
He
the
totally
way he's
does.
moving, and he kind of picks up his head.
and then a random look off, like apes always like, do they do that?
he did a great job there. It just feels like an ape.
One of our few blue screen sets.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, I forget some of the ones that we did because we did so few of them. But even here, it's like, it's just using blue screen to extend. It's not really to like, invent the world necessarily, right? We did very few where it's just like actor standing on blue screen, But look at that. I can't imagine the paint out on that, trying to paint those lights out and just marry all that stuff. It's wild.
Yeah. Shout out to the Paint and Roto teams.
Yeah.
Like they are
Definitely.
forever the unsung heroes of the visual effects industry.
Indeed.
yes.
None of this works without these guys.
Yeah, as you can see there, it's like you got to paint out Owen's arm, the camera that's covering over the entire plate. Because you're using the real plate here. Yeah, the timing is just impossible to get.
Yeah, this is one of the frequent examples where we're trying to use all of the interaction that we're seeing that Owen's actually interacting with that fish rack. We want the swinging fish. We don't have to regenerate all that stuff in CG. And so let's just paint him out. Let's paint him out painstakingly.
Even this one though, this stuff is crazy. Imagine painting out that wire moving around through all that fog that's moving around, and I just can't imagine it. I can't. Watch what happens here. You compare this thing with because we just could not do a clean plate of this. But see what that camera's passing in front of those fish, and they've got to paint that out. It's just wild. Just I look at that because I used to do paint and roto when I was in my younger days, and it's just stunning stuff. I think.
Yes, but you look at. No, I mean, this is a great example of Ryan, our A camera operator, legend, just a champion in terms of just being able to try and match stuff. Yeah. But you get into some of these very organic situations where he's following the actors making choices. The operator has to adjust to reframe and trying to replicate that when there's nobody there. It's just
we talked about early on, right, Eric? Like we're gonna have a more active camera, like handheld, I guess, camera at times. With that said, I did more. I don't think I've ever done a movie where I put camera on sticks, and we did a lot in here. There's a lot of just still shots in there that is new for me, which was fun. Look at that. That's wild. Yolk. Look at that wild. That's CG. It's just people take that for granted. I think that's all also CG.
Well, that's why I'm glad we're doing this kind of a viewing environment, because I do feel like most audiences do take this for granted because the apes are so real and they emulate actors so well. You really do forget how much work actually goes into making these movies.
Yeah, someone said that in some of the comments I've seen since the movie came out. The movie just came out, by the way, when we're recording this like a couple days ago. But one of the guys said that someone asked him, like, how's the CG? And he's like, I stopped seeing CG around 5 minutes. Like, you just it just goes right by, which is right where we want it to be. You don't want people like kind of oogling, ooh, look at the CG. It's kind of hard to help because it's so, crazy looking. But hopefully you just kind of like fall into it all and believe and, there's real empathy there with these CG, images on screen, hopefully. Yeah, it's cool to see kind of like the comparisons here. So this scene is going to be interesting to talk about. Obviously, that's based on a real location, real place. But the majority of all this stuff is full CG again. But it's a cool location.
Yeah, this is real with extension, and this is real.
Yeah.
Real place.
Yeah, real location. Obviously, in the background's all CG back there, but we actually went out and shot this stuff at night, and it makes a difference, I think, right? It kind of sets us up at least for the look.
Absolutely.
This was kind of an afterthought a little bit. We always had this idea, but putting that shadow idea was a little bit of a new idea somewhere in the process. It was really fun.
It was a surprise one visual effects review day.
Oh, he's a great example of just letting talented visual effects artists letting them be free to come up with stuff.
And so this is where now we're full CG. It's wild to me. It was an afterthought too because we shot a version of this scene, which I think how it helped us here with the lighting and just the reference. But the scene was just I had 8 hours to shoot it at night. It was just not possible with all the horses, all the complicated bits of it, and so it ended up being a very kind of skimped version of this scene and just wasn't good. And so like when we were trying to in the middle of the actor strike and we couldn't reshoot anything, we just started talking about a new version of the scene and how do we do it? Do we go back and build up a whole crew again? We have so little time. And so he's like, what? I gotta ask you, Eric, is it crazy if we went full CG? And I was worried about it, but it turned out great, I think.
Well, I mean, again, we had so much reference of this play.
Yeah.
We knew, how we could see how Jula lit it. Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. Like all the trees, all the fog, all the
everything.
Ground, the leaves, the ferns there, that whole shot is full CG. And so it led us to really kind of play around with these really complicated shots that would have been impossible for us to do in a night, on our shoot.
And it's interesting to note that Jula in the bottom, the camera he's working with is the virtual cam, which is what you see in the little picture-in-picture on the left.
Pretty
there.
Close, we ended up with.
But it really does give us on set a representation of what it's going to look like, and
it's something.
Very cool. But this is a whole scene that we ended up picking up in December when we went back just to pick up some stuff. This is one of the scenes that we did. This is one of the bigger scenes that we did.
Look at that shot. Holy crap. It's amazing.
Lightning.
One of my favorite shots, right, is coming up of Silva here. Right there. I love this shot. It looks cool, this mask, you know. All that stuff is really great. So that's probably the one shot where we... Oh, wait, no. No, there's no plate there. Actually, it's another different shot. Maybe this one?
This was the original set that we...
I don't think it ended up getting replaced anyway, but you can see a sense there. That's the two little pieces that survived from what we shot. As well. By the way, props to Ika and Ross Samuel, who that's their introduction in this scene. Plays Lightning and Silva.
I think Lightning was my favorite looking.
You can hear him ever. Yeah, Ross Samuel there. He's great. He really enjoyed, I think, playing this kind of just crazy, wiry, you know.
Unhinged.
Yeah, literally
like
unhinged.
psychopath.
And the reason ultimately why we call him Lightning, Eric, is
Another full CG shot.
Is the backstory is that he got struck by lightning, which is what...
No, he was playing electricity.
Oh, he's playing electricity.
And he got zapped by that.
Gotcha. But he's got a lightning scar on his forehead.
Yeah, so like, you know, the early ideas were that Proximus was playing with electricity. Obviously, he was gifted that by this human, like Prometheus or something. But it's given him this power to like become, you know, the king. So that was fun that there was apes that were experimenting with it and it got messed up. Great shot here too. This stuff's obviously real that we shot at dusk in that 15-minute window, I think over the course of 2 nights. And so it was a real logistical thing to deal with and a hell of a, as you can see, what we shoot and what it becomes. It's just wild. But this shot right here in particular took a year, Eric? More than a year?
Yeah, it was
on and off.
Yeah, going for the better part of a year.
Yeah.
Can't remember how many animators had to contribute to this.
And I kept changing it, so
yeah.
There was an extra move in this shot originally that took us away from Noah for a second and then came back to him. It just felt wrong. You wanted to stay with Noah, and so we had to figure out a seam, a kind of stitch point, essentially, to just keep it all kind of one fluid shot.
Yeah. The tricky thing you imagine with a piece that's so long, it's continuous, unbroken shot that has so many apes involved. As soon as you make a change in the middle of it somewhere, everything after that has to ripple that change.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You can see we didn't have any real fire basically on set. We had a little bit, but very, very little. So all the fire you see is also CG. It's like, I think people take that for granted too, you know?
Well, the thing that was great is the fire that Rodney and Will and the special effects team, you know, did supply there on the day. That gave us the perfect reference for things like exposure,
the
and
optical
gave us
aspects of
a
it,
foundation to build our stuff on top of.
Right.
The elder.
I don't know if anyone recognizes Honor Elder, but it was the guy in the very beginning. Was the idea. And that is the father of Cody Smith McPhee, right?
Was he?
Yeah. From Dom.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. That's his dad.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
That's awesome.
Cody Smith McPhee, of course, from Dawn of the Park.
From Dawn of the Apes. Same thing there. Like, that's a full CG shot where I came with a shot after the fact, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of have a good shot of him, his face, which you never did. So you guys just created a new shot basically for me, which is wild. This stuff was also crazy to shoot. But you know what would we do? 2 nights of this? 2 days of this? It wasn't too crazy.
Yeah.
Usually action stuff goes pretty quick, to be honest, the fight stuff, because there's only so many shots you can get, you know?
The shoot part goes quick. The planning part takes a long time.
Yeah. But, you know, we didn't really storyboard this. We just kind of started building the set and then just kind of figured it out in between meetings of other things, kind of what roughly we're going to do. You just kind of make it kind of feel spontaneous and interesting.
Yeah, so like Glenn and his stunt team sort of just coming up with ideas and gags and working out choreography.
Then
that was added. That would be kind of cool to bring back the bend your head thing. Proximus says, oh, that's the kind of stuff we do everywhere, right? We just slip in these little ideas. And there's times and places where we'll get to it, but where I just had actors, we ran out of time to capture it. So I had actors in their bedroom recording their face and their audio on their iPhone. And we use it in the movie in a way. So it's kind of amazing. I'm going to be spoiled when we get back to a regular live action movie.
No, I know.
And you don't have this power, to like really finesse and hone and all that stuff. It's fun. But yeah, another big, giant, long, kind of active shot. But you can see the guys really did it, It's kind of cool. Obviously, we didn't crunch anything. Kind of, I'd imagine that. I think it makes it feel kind of alive, right? The shot. Yeah, obviously we didn't do that, but it's a cool shot. All the dust and everything's really awesome too. And you see it getting pounded. I love this little. I love that. Like we had a little roar in there, but then I got a Link put in that awesome roar. It's just so great. I love it. So violent,
But it's but we did do stunts. Like, here we go.
Yeah, because he jumped into a pad. Yeah.
So crazy.
And then wrestle the chair.
Yeah, this is funny. I mean, if you look on the left there.
You can't. I mean, there's so many elements there, but you pause and look at it, like, oh my god, that's how they make these crazy things. We're a giant movie and we're sitting on a swivel chair. Yeah, it was fun to make it like that. I think.
Well, you get to be a kid again, which is what you love, because you just have that, charisma about you.
I just never grew up.
You didn't. That's the best thing about being in this kind of a business, though, because you don't have to grow up. You can just be a kid.
And just spend lots of other people's money. Hopefully it works out for everyone. We certainly hope so. We did try to make it responsibly. This turned out to be a cool shot, I thought. Took a while for us to get there. We had different ways of coming back into the scene, but that was another one where I kind of just asked you to spit out that animation into Unreal so I could just kind of play around with cameras, and I found that basic idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes that helps. I'd like to do more of that, honestly, because I just find it such a good tool just for camera work, basically. I can't do animation, but we went back and forth on this sequence forever, right? This was just I just take out this shot, put this shot. It just had to find its way a little bit, but I like it.
But you just wanted to feel this desolation and the isolation of him not knowing where anybody is, what happened to anybody.
Yeah, and look at the face of Owen there. Like, it's so good. He just looked crushed, And as you can see, sometimes we have to actually adjust the performance to kind of fit the shot, which you can see there in that one. That's another one where we had to just use the real plate because of the interaction and stuff. But this is probably a much easier one to paint out, but still, it's really cool. It's one of the earlier shots we did, wasn't it? Yeah, no, I take it for granted now myself.
Yeah, this was an early one, and actually really successful.
Yeah, all the ash in his fur. I remember the first render we got with that in. For the longest time, we didn't have that ash in there, and it was so cool.
It just sort of takes everything up to the next level.
Yeah, like little subtle things that you just don't see, or kind of you don't think of, And this is cool. This is always one take, actually, but we split it up. But for the longest time, I was just going to stay in this one take the whole way through. But I think people needed the kind of release of seeing what he was seeing. That looks ridiculous. I'm actually screening the movie with that. How do you not laugh at it?
That's the problem,
in this really
right?
important moment. So it's just you're constantly pulled out of it, but you just have to trust. Yeah, it's going to be fun. But Owen and everyone did a great job.
He did such a great job. I remember watching this live on the iPad. It's like, man, it's getting dusty in here.
Yeah.
It's like, so long as we can bottle that and put that on screen, this is going to work really well.
This was kind of
I think everything. One thing I guess I should mention is like, so in Weta, as we sort of broke this show up into bite-sized chunks. We essentially worked with 4 internal teams that were doing this, and everything we've been watching so far up to including all of this stuff with the village. This is all Philip Leonhardt and John Soar, and on the animation side of things, and just such great stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up my unsung heroes, which is Logan Bright and Danny Walker, who were the 2 visual effects editors that I pulled onto my team. Because obviously all this has to be given to Weta in a way where they can assimilate it, track it, understand it, and, work with it, which is their responsibility. So within one shot, depending on how big it is or whatever, I mean, these are relatively simple, but that oneer where it's the whole village attack, there were, 20 plates that they had to turn over of different things, people moving and, different skies, different, focal plates and all that stuff, and then all the performance capture stuff, and so they just did their work was tireless, just turning it over to Weta and Wetatorial. But that communication was so great. It really made it actually one of the more enjoyable movies to work on, because it just was very seamless, which was great. I mean, I hope you feel
Speaking
like
of
that.
great, how great is this score?
This score is amazing.
This scene was actually one that was kind of invented, basically. We did shoot it, but it was in the movie for the longest time. And we kind of just kept arguing about it, and eventually came up with a way to kind of fit it into the story flow here. And I think it helps, gives people that real strong sense that Noah as a character is kind of crossing a threshold that he wasn't willing to cross earlier.
Yeah.
It's just that classic hero's journey thing, that I think the audience needs somehow.
And the music really helped land that we needed it.
Mm-hmm.
This very emotional moment of burying his father to, okay, the declaration of, I want to bring him home, and then the action of actually doing it, score-wise, that's 3 different...
I love that shot. That thing is kind of transformed, I think, too.
This one? Yeah.
No, that one before
The
this.
one before it.
I just love that. It looks so good, This is another one. Like, why is it that I keep in all my movies shooting at dusk? It's like every time, or dawn. It's like it was just like one of those nightmares where we had 15 minutes to shoot this stuff.
Because it looks cool.
We set up 3 cameras
cool
around them, and we would shoot all the performance stuff when there's a little bit too much light, so that we had, that 15 minutes to shoot all of our plates and just the perfect light. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Unfortunately, in the deleted scenes, you'll see one of my greatest cuts. I mean, my most reluctantly cut shot was the core. He has a dream, basically, that ties us back to the opening of the movie, where Caesar is kind of consumed by flames. He finds his father. He's visited by his father stepping out of these flames. And it was sort of a nod to what a shot that Matt did in War, where this kind of Koba visits Caesar in this kind of vision. And we'll have it on deleted scenes, but it used to fit in right there. And then he woke up, and then, someone did visit him, and it was actually the spirit of his father's son. And I always loved that idea. It's kind of mythic in some way, but had to cut it for time, like most things. And by the way, this location is Dan built basically the stands of the stadium. There's little seats back there. They're kind of hidden in the background, but we're kind of in the remains of the stadium that we ultimately reveal here in this shot. That was kind of cool touch that just kind of goes right by you. This is cool. I like this shot too. I'm not sure people for whatever reason miss the trail that he's following, but whatever. Also, check this out. Like the whole hill there is actually all CG and on with the ground, because it looked like a driveway, And even like the rock back there, you guys put in like what was left of an old building. It's like, I love these little touches all over that kind of make it feel like the ruins are all around us.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing, from all of the early location scouts. It was a lot of pointing at this thing, going, oh, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could find, looking for opportunities to continually remind the audience that we're in the remains of human civilization.
I guarantee you most people missed it, missed a lot of, like there's a little rebar in that last shot that you see sticking out, It's cool.
Yeah, sometimes the changes were incredibly subtle.
Yeah.
You have to look super hard and know that they were there to see it. But that's what's great about this before and after version of the movie.
Really
You can
see
really
it all.
kind of compare.
That shot of him walking up the hill, by the way, is one of my favorite shots in the movie. It just turned out better than I thought it would. Look at that. That's wild. I don't know how much we actually used all this, but it was a good reference.
Like there are bits and pieces
Yeah.
of that. I mean, to some degree, we have to work it
Yeah,
to
it's
the
Paul and
the
team too,
fleet
though,
and the
right?
camera.
Contributing here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some of the earlier stuff we did too, right? There's like some of our earliest look dev stuff with like testing out Noah. I thought was really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like one of the first things we turned over actually to what I think that and some of the
Here he is, everyone's favorite ape.
oh, Peter did an amazing job. Being the only orangutan in the movie, he really stands out, so it's great.
Yes. Speak.
He's a little breath of life and joy, I think, in the movie.
Go back.
There's so many moments through here where Owen has this thing he does with his mouth when he's playing apprehensive or something, where he's his upper lip just kind of bunches up, and that was one of the key things that really nailed making sure that Owen came through in the character. We got those shapes working, and you go, oh my God, there he is.
Yeah, even to the point that I was telling people, like, most people's faces aren't symmetrical, and Noah's isn't. And as soon as you added that to Noah, it really locked in for me, where you're really matching kind of the features and proportions essentially of things. And so even to the point where when the trailer guys would flop shots, it wouldn't look like Noah to me anymore, Yeah,
it'd be like the difference of looking at yourself in the mirror versus seeing yourself on camera.
Right.
Like, it doesn't look like me. You're just so used to seeing yourself in a particular way.
I love that last shot.
Owen's face, his left eye is slightly lower than his right eye.
Right.
And so we started working some of that stuff into his character, and he just shines through. It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing that all these characters, that they kind of have good angles, and like actors, not so good angles, And it's interesting because you don't know what the ape looks like when we're shooting this stuff. We have an idea, but you don't know.
Did you?
So it's fun to kind of, as you go through it, you learn kind of what are the good angles on these guys,
I hate.
But this is cool for Dan Dorn.
It's one of the interesting things too, because when we, in the process of doing this, we were shooting the movie. We didn't have the characters designed or built at that point.
Yeah,
so
we had Noah's little model.
They didn't even know.
That was about it, his face model.
Yeah.
But even that wasn't exactly it. Oh, that's my favorite
so much
shots
of that
there.
process was found in post.
Yeah, so not only did we have to just do the movie, we had to design it all. The clothing, even that changed in the design process of while we're editing, So it's like so much happened in that. What is it, 56 weeks that we finished it in post?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Because we lost 2 weeks.
58, I think, yeah.
Which is the fastest I think it's ever been done on these Apes movies.
Yeah, it's easily 8 weeks earlier than the
In my
previous three,
one, yeah.
for sure.
said that name.
But as far as some of the clothing, the cultural side of it, of trying to start building this idea that apes are starting to build a culture and
Adorn
have
themselves,
identity,
right?
We leaned on our friends down the street at What a Workshop to actually build physical representations of these and explore materials and try different weaving styles for Eagle Clan and try different metals and leather for the Proximus' gang that we're going to meet. And it's always just hugely helpful for us because it gives our artists that are having to actually build these costume pieces something physical.
Think about how it's built, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what makes it feel real. Like if you really look at some of the details, like all the little fuzz on the edge of the leather, it's just all these little subtle things that just, if they weren't there, you'd miss it, but you wouldn't know why,
And this is a perfect example of how many different cuts we can have within one performance take, but it's actually just encapsulated in one long shot because, again, there's no camera. I mean, there's no shots.
But the guys have to go and stitch all this together and get the head moves. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
Dirk ended up putting this performance together. And
Dirk isn't here right now, but he's our second editor.
Yeah, Dirk Westerfield. I mean, I couldn't done it without him. But this was one of those ones where, again, also shot sort of later on in the production as one of our pickups in December, and almost one of the last shots that we got from Weta just because of how complex it was, and
all CG.
all CG, and how late it was in the process.
But it came together really quickly. I mean, maybe we just got a rhythm by this point, but I thought it came together really quick.
Relatively quickly, yeah. But you look at this environment and think about how many different plants have to be placed in here to build this place up. It's
it's
quite an endeavor.
But we shot another sequence here that was fun. It was kind of meandering, I guess. And so we really quickly, early on, like in the very beginning of the cut, realized we're going to have to redo this. Something that's cleaner, simpler. And that's what ultimately we came up with this thing. That just saved time, but more or less just got to the point of what we needed to say. We were kind of going on about lots of other things, which will be on the deleted scenes, but at least parts of it. But I like this vibe.
I was going to say there's only one shot of that set left in the movie now. Yeah,
it's at the end of the movie.
Yeah, right.
We used it.
Yes, it is a problem,
But I love like the sense of mystery and discovery here, of like a lost world that's waiting to be uncovered. The truth about a world that no apes remember. It's just it's a cool vibe.
Yeah, you always had positioned Raka as like an architect or archaeologist,
anthropologist of humans,
of sorts, of human.
A sense of things being lost, which is a really cool idea. I thought.
Yeah, I love that.
Another good example of like, how the hell did you paint that out? Wow.
There is much.
Also, I guess
the clean plates obviously give us all that information.
Yeah.
But the camera moves are always different. The parallax is
the leaves.
It's a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a nightmare. It's crazy, but it can be done. So good to know. No more clean plates.
Time and money.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Exactly.
Good example there. We're just little pickups here and there where we did something differently. I forget what it was now, but it's cool that we can do that sort of thing where as long as we do have clean plates or at least a version of it, we can come back in and we don't have to go back and mount up a whole film shoot crew. We can just step into a volume and bring the actor out and just recapture that little piece that we need. It's really cool.
I have no time for. I will not slow you down. I too. Horse.
Another full CG shot where we originally were going from the bird down, but then we started thinking about, the trails. Guys, remind me about the trail he's following because audiences were having trouble with that. The yellow brick road, essentially, of the story. And so we came up with this idea, and you had to kind of come up with a way to do it.
And then obviously native Californians will notice the LAX in the background.
Yeah, the theme building, yeah.
Never really say, but obviously that's the biggest clue of what it is.
Anybody born in Los Angeles knows that's
totally.
Yeah, you'll never see Tom Bradley Terminal different the same way.
Right. Yeah, and that's true. That shot in the airport when he's walking around, that big shot, full CG one, is based off of the Tom Bradley Terminal.
Yep.
Even the hole he falls through. So there's all these little things like that are kind of scattered throughout. This is another one where I thought it turned out really well, but you can see how we record it. It's like it would be a nightmare to try to get them to move properly. And so instead we just kept them still, and then you guys add in the kind of up and down kind of writing thing.
Yeah, because if you think about the logistics of it, so we have a camera that's moving a specific way. Sometimes we have real horses that we have to match into. If we had actors that were pretending they were riding a horse, trying to give themselves that kind of cadence, now we might have to actually remove all of that just to put it back in again in a matching way. So
just for that last shot, right? There was the one with the cage with real horses and a real shot. So it's all mixed together, right?
Keep them guessing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a good example where, for the performance plates, we don't worry about loading up all this atmospherics for the most part. But then we have our clean plate where we do, and so that's what you get to see. We get to kind of keep using the same thing over and over again. But I like how this stuff looks. It's a good feel. And another good example where it's like the camera's not fancy. It's all kind of basically still on sticks, which is kind of different from me. I like to move the camera around a lot, but it just felt appropriate here. It was such a quiet, simple scene. There's a kind of a quiet confidence to it that we could just kind of do it in a really traditional kind of way.
Rata. No.
I mean, a lot of us, this is like one of our favorite scenes. Even though it's a slow, simple little scene, it's I like it. I like watching it. I like watching people think, and the fact that they're apes, it's even on top of that, it's really mesmerizing. Yeah.
Was this the scene that you cut together from their audition tapes?
So when I got the audition tape for Owen, he had chose this scene because we give him obviously a couple sides and they pick their sides they want to do. And Owen had done this scene, and it just happened that Raka on his end, totally unrelated, did a version of this scene too. And so it also happened to be that Noah was looking left to right and Raka was looking right to left. And so I got to cut them together while we were doing the casting process to see how these two might feel in a scene together, even though the backgrounds and worlds are completely changing.
That's right.
It's just amazing. It is obvious. It was like, okay, we're done. We've got our Raka and Noah, Yeah, it was really cool. But, obviously it's hard to ignore, like, the voice of Peter is so good, But also, like, he kind of has this theater background, doing, like, Shakespeare and stuff like that. And he's kind of felt right for Raka to be this kind of, almost thespian. You can imagine Raka putting on road shows or something, Yeah. It's a fun character.
Why did Caesar?
And this scene was actually originally much longer, too. They go into a lot more stuff, but it just kind of fell away as we kind of focused the scene into what we needed to say. But this is one of those lines we had in there that I always loved is Raka tells him stories last longer than laws. And that's very much the journey that he goes on, Noah, And
actually, if you remember, Wes, part of this scene originally, the longer one, we actually extracted some of that dialogue and actually put it into that writing scene that happens just before this.
Yeah, retells the story.
Retells the story about, raising eagles and where he comes from and all that stuff.
Yeah, because originally, I guess, Raka, on that horse riding before this scene, Raka talks about the story that we saw in the opening, which is this kind of legendary story of Caesar's kind of funeral and how his body was sent to the sky where all apes can look up and remember who he was. So it's this kind of the birth of a kind of spiritual idea between apes, like apes almost finding religion, just the beginnings of it. So it's another just cool idea that we sprinkled throughout the movie. But it's just one of those little subplots that had to kind of go for time. But I love that shot of Owen. It's just great, like through the fire with the heat ripple and haze.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah. Compositor absolutely nailed the heat haze on that shot.
The example there, like there was no puddle, there was no stuff in the foreground. We added all that into the shot just to make it better. It was cool. So this set here was from a much longer, different scene that we had shot that got cut for unfortunate reasons, but we ended up using it here just to kind of convert a kind of an entrance into the observatory here. But there used to be a long scene between that fire scene and the observatory, which you'll see in the DVD on the deleted scenes. But just it would have never worked on, sadly. And it was a good little scene.
And this is one of your bigger sets in the movie, right?
Yeah, very expensive, big set to build, even though it wasn't even halfway complete, it's wild. But like all the grass and the trees, and it was wild to kind of build that thing and to still feel like, man, it's still not big enough, But yeah, the comp team on this one, I think, did a good job too, right, Eric? Just like fitting into all that haze and dealing with the light.
The bleed of those stage lights around the edge of the telescope
wild.
There. The telescope that, interestingly, I've seen people refer to as the missile launcher or the cannon.
Yeah, it does look like a gun, I guess. But if they still think whatever, they can go with it. I've had, we'll see what people say, but there's a lot of contention of like, show what he sees. I'm like, look at the reflection in his eye.
Exactly.
But I didn't want to show what he saw. I wanted to stay here with him and not break it, that spell that he was under, and like let the audience just kind of imagine what he saw. But I think some people like it, some people hate it, whatever. It's a choice.
That extreme close-up of his eye, a lot of people have commented how amazing they think it looks. And I mean, the team just absolutely nailed it. But you look at, you look at what Owen gave us, and there's just so much nuance there that we could, so long as we match that. Yeah,
right. Yeah, you had something, you're not inventing it whole cloth, which would just have taken many times longer. I'm sure you could have gotten there, but having these choices kind of, something to reach for essentially on what the end result needs to be just helps, right?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for us is that we get the benefit of you being able to work through those choices and stuff with the cast in real time on the day. Like if take 4 wasn't quite there, we can make some adjustments and go to take 5 and just, you can arrive at the answer performance wise. Whereas if we're doing it through a traditional animation process, that might take
weeks in between.
Weeks,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
She saw what I saw. It was in her eyes. She
Reacted.
reacted.
Another good example of like, we were going to try to get out of Vancouver light in this movie. We just decided early on, let's get apes into the sunlight. In this case, harsh noon, summer Australian light, which is, for all accounts, basically ugly light. But I don't know, it gives a movie a different feel, feels like a new day.
Yeah.
Also makes it harder to hide behind anything, really.
Yeah.
Visual effects wise. So again, kudos to Weta for just absolutely nailing the realism of everything.
Dirk's favorite scene. Not really. We talked about cutting this quite a bit. But you could have cut from, Rocco looking at her and then boom, they're on the road.
Straight to the wide shot. But Wes really loved the idea of him kind of just...
I liked her face there.
Yeah, getting close to her.
I liked her. I wanted him to bring her in, and because we cut some other stuff about the relationship, it's like we needed something in there. But whatever. This was kind of just ad-libbed on the day from Rocca. This whole thing about the givens and, imagine you're falling from a tree. Why would I hear me falling from a tree?
Right.
It's just weird. It's like, it's just funny. I like it.
4 times the safety.
Silly. But this joke always got a huge laugh. I think it's just the timing of it works really well, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
But what is that?
Yeah.
And then
It always gets a laugh. And this stuff, man, this was a bitch to shoot this stuff. It's because, as you can see the wind, for whatever reason, this day, it was so windy. I mean, it was crazy. And shot over 3 days, I think, but it kind of comes in and out. But, man, it was just a nightmare.
But, that wind, as soon as we start tying our characters,
yeah, it's awesome
by making sure that the
you're
wind,
glad you have it, right?
The whole thing just marries together.
But there's some takes where it's like a hurricane's going on back there. I couldn't use it. Like the background looks awesome with all these trees swaying around. It's just like it was just too much. I couldn't use it all. But it looked bitching. Yeah, our feral humans make their appearance. This wasn't in the original draft. This was added by Rick and Amanda, who are producers/writers. Coming up with, we felt like we needed to see feral humans actually. They came up with a scene where they're kind of just similar to other wild animals. I always wanted to have some signs of an old zoo around here, it's to kind of justify where these zebras came from, but it doesn't matter. But you can imagine you left Griffith Observatory to Griffith Park Zoo, and that's where we are now, in the remains of something.
But this sequence also is very sort of another nod, one of many, to the original movies, right?
Yeah. And it's also like a way for, let's just, whatever. Like we ended up revealing a lot of these story points of May through the marketing, but a first timer watching this, like you're starting to lean into this character of May. There's something going on with her. She's not like the others there. And like, what's going on? There's like a little puzzle that's starting to kind of form, that's kind of very much what this was about. Like why she's upset. She's looking at what's at stake for her species, what humans are going to become if she's not successful in trying to stop whatever's going on, So it's like an important moment for her as a character, even though it's like we're kind of out of the loop at this moment. But looking back on it, when you come back and watch the second time, it kind of starts to make sense.
To remember.
We originally had him saying it was more of a goodbye of like, I wish you didn't have to go. And it was weird. It's like, we said, let's just bring it back to Caesar, to remember who he was, which is obviously the kind of the journey that Noah goes on. He gets exposed to this idea of who Caesar was and carries on the flame, essentially, of that character we all love. But that was a little reshoot. I originally wanted all the feral humans to be actually naked. I don't want him to have clothes on, but obviously that wasn't going to happen. In fact, there actually is
maybe,
one or two.
Maybe a little distracting.
There is one or two in there that don't females that don't have any tops on. Their hair kind of covers everything fairly well, but they are actually there. But tastefully, where you
family friendly.
Yes, very family friendly. We do have bosses that we have to live up to there.
And this is another example where Freya did an amazing job on her clean plates when being interacted and just remembering what she's
not really there. Yeah. She was kind of like a robot.
I gotta say,
it's amazing.
She's phenomenal. Like in that, like I started calling her the queen of the clean plate because she just could so convincingly sell herself getting pulled around by the arm, let's say, from a gorilla that didn't exist.
Yeah, or like hit her timing.
Really talented.
Exactly right. And like she looked to the left and then to the right, at exactly the same times. It was wild. So it's a real hats off to what she had to go through, I think, making this too. That's one of my favorite shots, and that's like a little locked off shot. That's what made me fall in love with long lens locked off shots.
Yeah, and I mean, to the other point, I guess this begins her running. Like, again, she's quite the athlete.
Yeah, she's got a good run.
It was so great for us is that she's doing so much of her own stunts. She had 3 different stunt doubles through the film for different parts of the movie. But so much of what you're seeing on screen is literally Freya doing that thing, which is
doing her thing.
Such a help for us because we only had to do a couple of face replacements here.
Yeah.
There, so.
And that's that cut there to a new location, essentially. Hopefully it doesn't, bump anyone, but that's like a wholly different location. This whole sequence was shot over 4 locations, I think, or
3.
something.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, 3 different places.
Which was kind of a bit of a nightmare. Where the grass scene was supposed to be kind of connected to this one location you're seeing right now. The grass didn't grow. That we planted a bunch of grass to try to grow, so we had to go scramble at the last minute and go find a field of grass. Of course, there's no trees around, so we had to put all the trees in CG. We'll get to that stuff, but it was just a real nightmare. But that's a case where that was just not grow.
Yeah, so that one shot right there was Stephanie Beck, her stunt double, and then we just did a little face replacement. But so many of the shots leading into that were
her.
Freya.
Yeah, pretty much the only one actually, right? That we replaced of her in this.
There's another one in the river coming up, and there's a couple of shots here or there, but love the shot.
Yeah, it's a good shot, really active. This is the kind of stuff that was fun to do in the action scenes, where it's this kind of spontaneous camera, even though it's not spontaneous. We got to reshoot the clean plates and everything, but it's fun to kind of give it that kind of wild feel to everything.
Yeah, but so much contact. You think about those couple of shots with lightning sort of really manhandle or ape handling. Yeah. Jade, the front player there, just
crazy amount of work.
Specific contact with needing to make sure.
And that's stuff that always falls apart, but it works perfect. Here you can see what we actually shot. So that's obviously all CG, because you can't. Yeah, obviously because of the interaction with the apes and everything. But
so another shout out. I mean, this middle part of the movie, everything after Noah left his village through this and then into the river that's coming up was our visual effects supervisor Steven Unterfranz and animation supervisor Dennis Yu and their teams putting this all together. But there was a big push for continuity to make sure that we could tie these 3 completely different looking locations together. And the trees, all those gum trees, that was the kind of unifying visual thing that would really make sure that they felt like it was all the same place. And so there was. I remember, Wes, you were really nervous about the scene.
I was terrified.
Work.
I was like, we're gonna have to go and reshoot this. This isn't gonna work. I almost kind of gave up, but it worked out. It worked out.
I was like, well, how are we gonna do it? Well, we're gonna add CG trees where we need to add CG trees. That's gonna make it look like it's all
that
place.
Stuff, right? It's like wild, like right there. Like obviously, we're putting in that forest back there, and I don't think you can tell. It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And like there, all that grass that she's interacting with, that's actually you guys adding it on top. So like there's so much stuff going on in this little sequence that people aren't aware or don't realize.
Yeah, think about having to do these shots where essentially we have to match move Freya running so that we can have CG grass interact with her. Yeah.
And then kind of, come up with these, this is where we kind of, just push the cameras a little bit more interesting kind of in post we can. It was great to kind of really do what we kind of wish we could have done on set if we weren't under such
This is my favorite
duress.
when you're fighting with him on the right there.
Yeah, I was helping Owen with his performance there. Oh, that sound. Cling.
It was actually, Scott Aversano, one of our creative execs on the dub stage was like,
Burst out laughing.
he literally is like, oh, bigger, bigger, bigger. And we're like, all right. And then bong happened.
Yeah, so then we're back to the original location. That field back there was supposed to be where the grass was supposed to be, but all we had was a little bit. You know, it's pretty wild.
This should.
Yeah, and this was a crazy location because it's real location. It's beautiful, but we weren't sure gonna be able to have real horses. And then the final hour, like, you can bring a horse. I was like, screw it, it's not worth it. You know, so sorry, Eric.
Well, the trick was going to be, you're going to bring a horse, but in order to make sure that the horse was going to do what we needed, they would have had to put white tape going off into the background, and we would have to paint that tape out. It's like, nah, don't. We'll just have to deal with it.
This stuff looks great in UHD, by the way, because like for us, it's like it's blown out. Because you guys comped it right, like it just feels so good. Like it feels real. You know, just have a little bit more texture in the background, and the bridge stuff is that way too. Where I kind of became a believer UHD now, because I've always struggled with it. I don't like how it looks usually, or it's just, I don't want it to blow. I want it to kind of roll off. I don't want to see into that fire and the clouds or whatever. But I think Dave found a really good, our colorist found a really good balance.
Oh, for the HDR.
Yeah, for the HDR.
Yeah.
Some intelligence to be sure.
I have a name.
Fitzroy Falls Reservoir.
Yeah.
May.
We did a bunch of concept art with that place in mind, and then turns out right we get there, this freaking storm rolls in, you know, and so that's what you're kind of seeing. Essentially, we shot it in about an hour, that whole scene, the clean plates, and then we came back and did the mocap because we could, but it was just one of those cases where we just had to, in between rain, shoot our shots, and there's one take where there's thunder and lightning in the background, like, okay, everyone under the tents, and we have nowhere to hide, so we're just sitting there waiting.
Lightning shut us down.
Yeah.
The other kind of lightning.
Yeah, but it was when we were wrapping, right? We wrapped that thing. It was like 6 o'clock or something. And remember the clouds and the light that kind of rolled in? It was the most crazy thing I've ever seen. Like just the way it felt there. I wish I could have shot in that because it would have felt fake, but it was amazing.
Well, it's an interesting point. But like, I think throughout all this, I mean, Gyula was, kept going like, let's just make sure we're not putting in impossibly beautiful skies everywhere. You know? Yeah. Wanting to not make it feel too fantasy.
Yeah, give it like texture.
Sometimes you just see these, sometimes you just get these actual skies that just look too real.
Yeah, a good example is that shot with the Marauders riding into the village. There's that one shot. We shot a real shot, and it was the sun was going down, and it was the most dramatic sky I've ever seen in my life. And we shot it, and you can see it there in the bottom frame, but we couldn't use it. We ultimately had to replace everything to go full CG with it, but it's amazing, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the larger thing is it had to tie in to the sky,
the rest of the world,
the upcoming shots. It couldn't be so.
Although if it was a real movie,
sunset.
If we were doing a real movie, like, whatever, old movies, they'd have these guys unmatched.
Yeah, right.
But you're right.
It was great at Blu-ray. It'd be fine.
Yeah, right. But this is I love the shot too, by the way. It's just another one of those cases where it's like simple move that just kind of tells this great little story. There's no dialogue, just you see the kind of, the walls breaking down between these two characters now. I love this little thing here. Whatever, yeah, it kind of slows down a little bit, but whatever. I love all this stuff. And then like this little scene where
location to shoot in though.
Yeah, it was a pitch to shoot in. Everyone's slipping around. It's like it had rain. It was muddy and slick, and I was like, "Don't step on that," because I wanted to protect all the greenery that was around in there. So it was a nightmare. Another one where we had to shoot it right at the end of the day. I remember it's kind of a pain in the ass. And then we, at night stayed here and finished this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, we had to try and get mocap camera rigged in this half of a cave that was that we were shooting in this really tight location.
I love that shot of him pulling the camera, pulling the spear in, and just seeing that look on his face. It always felt like there's a glimpse of the future that Noah's going to as a character. You're not seeing that kind, innocent, sweet. You're seeing someone who's ready for battle or something. You know what I mean? You're seeing a darkness to him. I always loved that. It was cool.
Okay, and here's where Weta shines.
Yeah, so we had this one location that a flood had happened and it just wiped out all these trees. And then we had this little lazy river, as you can see there. And then Weta had to put in a CG river to deal with the rapids and stuff. And then boom, we cut to a parking lot. It's wild, man.
It is insane.
So you can see there's a lot of water in this scene. Perfect example there. Where that's all CG on the left and right. It's incredible. But this is one of the cases I love doing this stuff where we shoot out in real, or not on a stage with fake lights. We're out there really battling the sun, and I think it helps so much.
Tracking markers rippling in the breeze.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. Yeah.
Always fun. But yeah, it was an interesting jigsaw puzzle with this river scene in the sense of we needed the extension. And so the extension is based on a real location.
I mean, look at that water real quick. Look at that water. Holy crap.
Yarramundi River, right? So we actually had, our drone team came out to do, plates for us for aerial stuff, but then also we used them to do tiles hovering over sections of the river. And we could essentially stitch those tiles together of moving footage. So you actually have wind in the trees. And that became our kind of virtual cyc that we could use to extend all this stuff. And then that lies beyond the CG river.
But then look at that. Look at
That's what
that.
we're seeing. Yeah.
Wow.
Look what you created.
I mean,
from nothing.
so we did do water. It's just, I think most of the water got replaced, right, Eric? I mean, basically.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it did, but there's definitely sections
Yeah.
coming up here where we actually kept parts of it where it made sense to keep it. And the interaction we were getting off of Freya and Peter became really essential part of tying this whole thing together.
But also extending the bridge and just all that stuff. It's like, it's just, I don't think anyone would ever question it,
And there's a perfect example too, where, sometimes during the stunts, you can't have the face booms on our actors. So all that face animation is hand done by these incredible artists at Weta. And it just to match sort of what our actors were doing. But there's literally no.
Love this shot.
Yeah, this is a great shot. But I mean, all that face is all hand done. It's amazing.
Lots of reference cameras around. People don't realize that there's a lot of IR cameras, which you can see in the background, the clean plates there. Like they're capturing the dots essentially. But there's also all these witness cameras of other operators, with what is it, like a handful of cameras that were also recording every little person.
Yeah, half a dozen.
Yeah,
sometimes more.
Look at that.
So, so much work of back and forth with our effects team and our creatures team to get the river simulation to then drive the way that the hairs behave on Raka, to then feed back to the effects team so they could put super high resolution water thin film simulations so that it runs off of his hair the right way.
Look at that. It's coming out of his beard.
Water running off his beard.
It's just wild. That was like one of, if not the last shot, wasn't it? That we turned over, we finished.
Pretty much was, yeah. And it basically because we had to rip that out of their hands.
And that's something else you mentioned there.
Continually.
We should mention there. That
going
shot.
Back. We can make it better.
Yeah, that shot, that Together Strong, that wasn't there for the longest time. That was we changed that in the last 2 weeks or something. It originally said the work continues. It just didn't have the meaning it wanted. And so I had Peter laying out on his bed with an iPhone on his face, and he recorded that line, Together Strong. And that is what you hear in the movie. It's taken from his iPhone, an iPhone recording. And then the Weta watched his face as reference and implemented all that performance stuff in there. It's freaking crazy.
So New Zealand makes an appearance in the movie.
Yeah, there's one shot of New Zealand. And then it goes in, but this shot is not. This shot is Australia. So it's like, there you go. Yeah. It's pretty wild that they match so well.
This is, Cronulla, funnily enough,
I love the light.
Fall Guy this beach.
I love the light in this scene.
Oh, really?
I hated it when we first shot it, but now I love it because it's like this cloudy, sunny thing. You just pray for light like that. It's amazing. But this was actually our first day of shooting. It was a pre-shoot. We weren't, it wasn't an official first day, but we had a small crew and went out and we got our feet wet, literally, with this crazy movie. But I remember us watching this stuff and being like, holy crap, it looks like a Planet of the Apes movie. Holy crap, we're making a Planet. Look at that shot. This is one of my favorite shots in the movie. I just love how that feels. And then we got this shot, and it's like, yep, that feels like a Planet of the Apes movie. It's going to be amazing. These big old horses, galloping through the water. It's like awesome. I always thought of this thing as like a castle, This shot was kind of added after the fact. We shot that plate, but like, it wouldn't be cool to kind of do the kind of famous over the Statue of Liberty onto Charlton Heston. We kind of did our version of that.
And I saw somebody on the internet pick that up.
That's right. You sent me that. That's good. Someone caught it. Yeah, but this is one of our blue screen sets, I guess you could say. But we still built quite a lot. This is a giant set, which was also doubled as our Proximus dinner scene set. It's the same set, but uses the resources. Like, that's where the table is usually there. Just behind that blue screen curtain is basically where is the set that Proximus steps down from when he's in the dinner scene. This is a great moment. Just a psychopath,
Baby bird.
Yeah, really, really allowed us to enjoy Lightning's face.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, Ross Samuel had a great time on this, I think. You see how we're just bouncing in and out of like some stage work, some mocap work, and then boom, we're out in real location again. And then basically this all gets fully replaced anyway, right, Eric?
Yeah, pretty much. I think just for
maybe the bridge.
We needed to build this entire environment in CG for shots where we didn't have a plate to service it. But sometimes it just becomes easier to replace the real thing that's there than to try and make it work with all the complex roto and everything else that needs to be done. Other thing with that too is like you saw in the sky in that opening shot that
storm.
It was about to start storming.
Yeah, there's another one of the cases where literally lightning hits.
Yeah. Made it take shelter in the catering tent for like half an hour.
Yeah. But yes, I mean, basically all this stuff is like, might as well be considered full CG. There's pieces that kind of make their way in, but you had to kind of build this whole world and it had to live up to how it needed to hold up.
Again, another example, no face booms. So all this facial animation is just
careful fake animation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little hard to hug somebody that closely when you've got things sticking off your face.
Exactly.
There are a few cases where like they'll bump cameras, but you left it in there, There's one with Koro and Noah when they talk. There's a little nod to his head, that was just kind of cool. It actually bumps heads, bump cameras for a minute, but whatever.
A nice moment in the movie when you get to see Suna again.
Yeah, and Suna as a character too. There hasn't really been a female ape that we kind of, have in the movies. We sort of have, I guess it was Lake, right? In the other movies, but not as a main character. Cornelia. I don't think you ever really heard her talk before, So, could we come up with a character to design that felt appealing, but still, it wasn't like putting lipstick on an ape, or the long eyelashes. Like, I think we worked on it a lot. That profile of hers it's a really pleasing profile, where I think, you kind of, I love her. She's adorable.
Yeah.
Because Lydia is so pretty and so beautiful, it's like you can't kind of go there really with an ape in a weird way, right?
Yeah, it's a funny thing when you look at chimpanzees in the wild. Trying to tell, male versus female, it gets a little hard to tell the difference sometimes. Just looking strictly at their face, So it was a challenge for us.
Mr. Bill Macy, it was fun to work with him for. I think he came in for like 3 days or something, but he was a cool dude. Just a pro.
Vonnegut.
That's a good one.
You first.
Yeah, another cool little set though. That was like, it's hard to tell in here, but it actually was built at somewhat of an angle, so all the lines are off essentially. And standing on set, it was always a little weird, It felt strange to be on this place that was leaning,
That's where Proxima.
It's good to see that Logan's got the non-VFX shot tallies labeled on the frames.
Yeah, exactly.
For those keeping,
I didn't notice.
For those keeping track at home, I think there were 38 shots in the entire movie that don't have any kind of visual effects. There we go, non-VFX shot.
But that's the other thing, like compared to the previous movies that had so much of the movie was human cutaways, essentially, you could cut to. We didn't really have that here. That was one of the few right there that you can go away from the apes. So now we had the new characters, but like had a lot there. You can see a witness cam there, that we have a lot of those throughout the shots. But yeah, it's wild how much ape-centric this movie is, I think, compared to the others. It felt appropriate.
I love this moment. It's great.
Yeah, I do too. Well, Sarah is just an incredible actress and just
plays
really,
Dar.
You know, again, not a.
I know.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, it's really great. And these two, like, they loved each other too. It was great, you know. Yeah, Sarah kind of like, I think, surprised us all, actually. Like, we all thought she was a great actress, and we knew Dar was a cool character, but somehow she elevated that character. Was it little she's in the movie? Like, that's some people's favorite character in the movie.
Yeah, definitely not one of mine for sure. And one of the nicest human beings I think ever.
Yeah, but she's a perfect example where the actor kind of brought more to the table than original.
Another case as well where we found that we essentially cast that ape character. We didn't design it. Like that was a chimp that we just all loved the look of, and that became Dar.
Mm-hmm. No, that's not Rocket. Shut up, everybody. It's Rocket, long lost relative or something, you know.
Twice removed.
Yeah, I
always supposed to have a mask on.
Yeah, that's right. You took it off. This stuff, I think you cut this first, Dan, right?
I did. This was the, I took a lot of time cutting this because I knew this was going to be one of the, bigger scenes in the movie as far as just how polarizing he played his character with, and Kevin. And
polarizing? What do you mean by polarizing?
Just that he's just so memorable from the moment he lands. You're immediately just kind of like, whoa, this guy's important, and he feels it, so, I just wanted to always make sure he had the weight of his performance.
Yeah, and Kevin just ate this up.
Yeah, I did.
You can see that sky back there behind it. It was awesome that they were shooting this stuff. And we shot it really quickly, same thing. We didn't have a lot of time in this movie, really. I think we shot it, 72 days, something like that? Which is pretty crazy, but...
73? I
3?
think it was day 77 out of 73. Something like that. Yeah, it's like the classic, like the sky we had during the performance plates was amazing, and by the time we got to the clean plates, all the clouds were gone. It was just this boring blue field.
Yeah, right. We wouldn't have believed it anyway. It needed to kind of get changed. But yeah, this scene's a really good one. It's fun.
Well, it's also difficult too because there's a lot of stories you sort of have to service, right? I mean, there's, you're really wanting to hear all the words he's saying, but there's all these little nuances where Noah's noticing May and Trevathan, and then
he's noticing his people are not, have submitted to this guy, and so that's the story for his character, right? Yeah. Is that he's seeing that he's surprised that they're hesitantly doing it, but they are kind of repeating back these lines. They've submitted to this new alpha. Noah can't accept it. So it's the kind of one of the beginnings of his change as a character, I think, where he's gonna abandon sort of like the way things have been done in the past with his world, and kind of go his own way. And then this stuff too.
It's amazing with. Yeah, I was going to say with this one, I think it's greatest here is Kevin was basically having to play this. We had a handful of extras who were wearing kind of just like gray tracksuits and whatever that were just kind of standing in as indicators for put apes here that we weren't capturing their performance. But Kevin had to basically play this big projection towards this crowd that didn't exist on the day, and just did such a great job. I mean, I remember, because he joined the cast a bit later than everybody else, maybe just due to schedules, but and so he came in late during the Ape School process, and I just watched him. I think the first day he stepped onto the mocap volume for Ape School, and started just the first time I heard his voice. He was standing in front of like the quote unquote dance mirror where the actors could sort of see themselves mapped onto a proxy ape for the first time, and really started exploring what it means to have these longer limbs on a mocap stage. And the voice came out, and that was the first time I heard how he was going to play this character. It was magic.
By the way, all that sim work there, it's not, obviously we didn't shoot any of that. You give props to Sean, right?
Props to you. Sean Walker, visual effects supervisor for this whole encampment sequence and what's to come. And Aidan Martin, animation supervisor for this. Their teams, again, just completely smashed this stuff out of the park.
Yeah,
it just looks
fantastic.
so
I
great.
love that shot of him there. I love this shot.
But I will say this scene gave me the opportunity to make a thermite reaction.
That's right, in your
my
field,
backyard, which was
your backyard.
Yes,
it was awesome.
I'm probably on a list somewhere now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
But it's cool. Yeah, it's wild, man. That we just obviously some very simple little, tests on the door, but just it wasn't spectacular enough. So it's like we had to take it all into the CG realm, and that scares you. It's all this physics stuff. It's crazy.
It's something that I think we had really good sort of reference throughout this movie. Like there was just a wealth of. Being here in Wellington, right by the sea, we've got perfect reference in so many places. In fact, there's actually one shot that I photographed, literally out, down the road from the house here, of the water at Lyle Bay. It's in the movie, use what we have in front of us, and shoot. I just shot so much around here that just served as reference for us in, day out. We could just refer to the way waves break over the surf break down the road. We could, the thermite reference, the torches. We had torch reference from the shoot, but I also shot a bunch of torch reference here as well that we had.
It's another thing people take for granted is just all the torches are CG for the most part, and no one would have attempted that in the past of let's just do CG fire. Now it's okay, we've done CG fire. Now let's just do CG water. It's just you guys are constantly pushing the boundaries of these things. It's kind of amazing.
Well, the thing that's great with these films is that screenwriters keep dreaming up new challenges to throw our way.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
another case where I like how she looks, Suna, in this. I thought Lydia did a good job.
The performance of it, but also just the way the light is sculpted on Suna. I mean, we kept working this for
it was a tricky one
over a couple of weeks just to try and really get the nuance of that. But where they landed was she looks fantastic.
You are different.
Yeah.
It's interesting with looking at Silva because we allowed ourselves to take a bit of an evolutionary leap to fast forward, evolutionary kind of changes a bit in this movie where the characters are. It's interesting. Our cast in this movie is quite tall, taller than we have had apes in the past, and so we've had to find ways to kind of facilitate that. So Noah has a bit longer legs. Silva has a bit longer legs than we've had on gorillas, which really plays in nicely with all the horse riding we had to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of something we talked about early on, right? It's could we just subtly kind of, start steering towards that Charlton Heston version of things?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tricky balance.
Because the gorillas in particular, they have this massive sort of crest, this crown.
Yeah, their heads are
so
massive.
much weight with a trapezius that runs down the back of their neck, and it can make them look really silly. Riding a horse, for example, there's so much mass, and so
to put a mask on him,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a real something to try to find something that was, took the shortcuts that we had, but still felt like a gorilla, or in this case, a chimp. And I guess we should probably put it to bed now. I know everyone's confused. Is it bonobo? Is he a chimp? In reality, he's based off of a chimp that we found. Chimpanzee. Correct. But, it can be whatever you want it to be. Bonobos are actually very nice. It's the truth. It's the chimps you got to look out for. But this is great stuff, man. And we saw this when we started getting these shots in. It was that's cool. It's just fun to watch him do his thing in this scene. He just gave it so much little peculiar behavioral things that it's interesting, to watch an ape do that. He's the most human character we have, I think, of all apes in this movie.
Yep.
The way he behaves, the way he talks, but he found this great voice, like you said, Eric. I remember when we first messed around with the voice, all I kept telling him was think about barking it. He kept starting to do. He found this way to he found that voice over time.
The thing that was really great about the way where Kevin comes from with this voice is it's almost like his mouth is getting in the way. His tongue is getting like there's this the way he's talking with the vocalization. It opens the door for so much interesting stuff with, like there's so many shots here where his tongue comes out, where he's just like licking his lips or whatever. It just brings this really sinister moment to his character.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
No one's getting in there.
But yeah, this set is, we touched on it earlier, this set is a redress of the ship entrance.
Yeah.
And so essentially art department came in and added all sorts of set decoration to just completely change the look of this space.
We ran out of stage space. We only had like 3 stages. That's our one reshoot in the movie.
One insert shot in New Zealand.
Whereas he originally dropped down a compass, but it just was too confusing to people. They're like, what is this? So we put in this whole map thing to convey that she had some kind of mission in the past and involved this place and yada yada.
These are the shots where you look at Kevin's size compared to May, and you're like, oh my God, he could just eat her whole head.
He could bite. Just bite her in half.
Yeah, are apes, generally speaking, in this, if you were to actually do a 3D printed full size version of these characters,
they're terrifying.
They would be terrifyingly large.
Yeah.
It is not yours.
It is now, isn't it?
But see, in that shot, I see his Proximus being filmed about even actually a bit smaller than Kevin, actually. But it is what it is. That's the world we're in now. They're just the size of humans.
Speaking of his tongue coming out of his mouth, my favorite shot is this one coming up right here, where he actually has his tongue comes out right at the end.
This is my favorite shot of him.
This one right here.
Oh, clever games.
There it is.
I remember Eileen put some our sound design. Eileen, who's also deserved a lot of props, and her team, along with Andy Nelson, who did our mix, the sound and music mix, our music and dialogue mix. She put this big sound in there. Like, okay, we got to tone it down a little bit, because there's also the sound. Speaking of the sound side of things, she's adding all kinds of sounds throughout this whole thing, and little breaths and all these little breathe ins and stuff. Like a lot of that was added in post to kind of make it all feel alive and real, and it's incredibly nuanced kind of work that they did. They spent a lot of time, their team, kind of just. It's not quite like an animated movie, but it's similar in a way,
And we didn't necessarily want to fully affect everybody's voice, but
you got to kind of help take it away from human a little bit.
Exactly, you do, because just the chest cavity alone is so much different from an ape, obviously, to a human.
But at the same time, we're trying to get them closer to humans. They're supposed to relate to these guys as humans, the way we're kind of, steering things. So this was a last-minute reshoot, which you can see, not this shot, but on all the rest of the scene. We shot the scene, but it was a much simpler scene. It was very much smaller. And then we brought Kevin and Owen out to New Zealand. What was it? January?
No, it was in December. Yeah.
No, it wasn't December.
That's right. That was the second time. This was
later.
This was like beyond our point of no return. We cannot do any more work. No more turnovers. And we're like, Eric, please. And we reshot this little scene. It was really late in the game, just to kind of give people more context of what was his plans, what was he thinking, and just giving a little bit more insight into him as a character. And it really helped a lot. It's just a cool scene.
Well, the thing that helped a lot, the thing that made this possible, is the fact that we were already essentially lit in our virtual CG world for this moment by the window, because we'd already had shots turned over from the original photography. And the other thing that was great is the additional photography, the capture pickup, that gave us an opportunity to re-get these guys with face booms on, because if you go back look.
That's right. There was
the shot of the two of them standing in the set.
Yeah.
We had to take their booms off, and so there was no facial data.
Yeah, it was all by hand. Yeah, right.
So the additional photography gave us a chance to actually get those captures instead of having to redo it all from hand.
Yeah.
By scratch.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, perfect example here where this is basically all CG, basically, right? And that's full CG. We shot on it. We didn't have a beach to go shoot at. or water to go shoot at. But all that water in the background that you just kind of just fuzzy in the background, you kind of take for granted. It's just wild. Like the amount of work that goes into that little bit of frame back there just to make you feel like you're in this place. The way the water kind of rushes up against the wall and then suds down, the wall. It's like, that's not free. Someone had to actually do that stuff, It's wild.
Yeah. Lots of work involved with the simulations on this stuff. And this is just the beginning.
And like but just in such a sort of haphazard, just throw it away kind of way, which is what kind of, it's always a little bit painful. It's like the amount of work that goes into that, but it's just a little out of focus in the background thing, Like hopefully people just, again, they just they don't think about that stuff. But it's fun to, in this case, that it's to appreciate
it as just it's just there in the background that makes you hopefully not think about it.
But we're here today to kind of appreciate all this incredible artistry, I think, from a lot of people. Yeah, you can see we built a little set on a little parking lot, basically, close to where our bridge was. So we did shoot it, but even the light was wrong. It wasn't really this kind of light. We even spent a lot of time trying to find this light. This was actually ended up being a reshoot. We had a take, but when I forget why we reshot this. It was to get an extra little line in there or something. And then we just said, after you guys had already animated this entire take, we got this take from Owen in January or whenever, December. And we just liked it more. And we're like, yeah, we got to redo it. Oh, that's right. We were shooting this little ad here of him finding the emblem. That was actually from Steve Asbell, our boss at 20th Century. And it just helps kind of tie these stories together because, really pinpoint that idea of like Caesar's beginning to kind of, get into his soul here, as a character. And that shot there, that when he holds out that emblem, that background water is the shot you were talking about, Eric, when you just shot some water, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this really just went down and found the perfect light and just went to the edge of the jetty at Lyle Bay and just shot a plate.
This wasn't scripted, the mom watching him, but I felt like when we were on the day, I was like, we need that moment. I think that's what kind of to me makes it work, is that he's witnessed by someone that he cares about, that understands. Like all that water and wave work, man, it's wild. It's basically full CG shot, right?
That one was,
Yeah. Yeah, another one, basically. So many of them.
Just another
one.
Just another one that we went round and round and round on, trying to find just the right tone, just the right sky, just the right.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah, it was. Yeah, those are hard shots to do.
I mean, there's another one. Like when I was in LA, one of the times through post production, I had driven 3 hours north to Morro Bay to try and see if I could capture the perfect sunset or the perfect sort of twilight moment for those beats. And yet another case where it's like, the sky's, it's close, but it's too pretty, or it's too this, or it's too that. You just sort of have to start, exploring and finding the right kind of sky for that moment.
Yeah, you guys must have a library of skies, though, no? At this point,
it's interesting that the kind of skies that we can easily capture here.
That's true. New Zealand's a very different
for certain situations.
Yeah,
you get a very particular kind of sky in Wellington.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you don't see a lot of those big, fluffy, cumulus type clouds there.
Sort of tropical. We're not tropical.
It's very windy too, right? Like wispy.
Yeah,
like low clouds moving fast, kind of things.
Yeah. I was afraid. Which worked out really well for the shot immediately after Rocca. Disappears down the river, and we kind of start to pick up on the beach like that. The sky that we start with there, that was just the sky off my deck one morning, and the clouds were moving that quickly across the sky, and it just sort of makes this really perfect tie-in where it feels like we're flying through the sky with the eagle.
Yeah. This shot, I love this scene, actually. I love what John did with the scene. This simple, really simple music. I thought it was like great. But I like that you really get the sense that Noah is changing as a character. He feels much darker here, He's seeing what humans are capable of, their lies, all that deceit, all that stuff.
And this book might bring it back.
I love that there's a little sense of danger here in a way, between these two species.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the core of this franchise, really. And it'll certainly play on in future installments if we're lucky.
It's also amazing just how, again, you can capture the intimacy of a scene between two actors, one being fully generated and one not. But you still actually get all the emotion, all the nuance of the performances and character stuff. It's just incredible.
Yeah, the magic trick. But again, I think it's take it for granted. So that's why I wanted to do this so much, to like really let people like watch this. They can watch it with or without our commentary, but to like just sit there and like, wow, it really is amazing. And just seeing just the process of making these movies, which is unlike any other process of making a movie, really.
And also how difficult it is for us as filmmakers to just watch the bottom screen the whole time
and make choices
and just make real choices about what it's really truly going to look like based on this. And it's really sometimes very difficult. So it is, like I said, the learning curve was big just even for that. You just really have to divorce yourself from the visuals and really kind of harness and focus in on your instincts of a story as a storyteller, just to keep leaning into the story and making sure that it's all working. Because when it comes to life, it does work.
It definitely.
I found really interesting talking to John was he was saying that he'd written some cues based on the performances of the actors that he was seeing, and realized when he started seeing the shots of the ape versions of them that somehow it didn't quite work, and he had to go back and rework some of the cues.
Yeah, because it becomes more real, like the illusion of it. It's like I find that's what I early on, Jewel and I started talking about things. You notice some of the first shots that we did. Were these kind of long crane oneers or something, and it just felt like it was too fancy. We still do them occasionally, but that's where we kind of adopted this much simpler approach where it's just sit here and like don't try to make this. These visuals are so impossible already. They're already so fantastic that you don't need to kind of hat it in the hat with a fancy camera, So that was an interesting learning experience. I really feel like by the end of the movie, we've kind of figured out how to make these movies.
Yeah.
So how it always goes, though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and then it's like, okay, you're done. Give me the movie. It's done.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not done yet. No, we can still do this thing. There's a piece of fur in the background.
We're just figuring it out. Like, give us more time.
But it is wild, when you go back and you watch kind of your early cuts or whatever it is, early versions of scenes. You're like, oh wow, you really interpret it differently after you've gone through it.
Totally.
Especially timing and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, this movie for, its length, whatever it ended up being,
2:15 plus credits.
2:15 plus credits. But
it's not that long.
But it's really only a little over 1,500 cuts, which, compared to a very similar length movie like
might have 3,000.
Indiana Jones had almost 3,000 cuts, so it just means that we're able to hold on shots a lot longer.
That's my thing too.
I like
it
right away for visual effects.
Like if you look at I think Matt's the same way, where it's like his shot count is much lower than normal movies, but I think we like longer like takes.
Staying in the moment.
Yeah, stay there. Like I miss watching people think.
Yeah.
Like
it's a testament to the performances, a testament to the work.
Yeah, they can hold it up, right? Yeah. But I enjoy that,
Well, there's it's like there's a great confidence in it too. I think people feel that in the performances.
Because the tricky thing is that I got my kids who are online and TikTok generation essentially. Like where we are, even myself too. Our patterns, our attention spans, they are changing. They are getting faster, and so we'll have to adapt a little bit too. Unfortunately, you can't take them in kicking and screaming. We're just used to processing stuff much faster, So we'll have to just adjust, and the whole thing of movies will change.
Explode
A bit.
Oh, do you know this?
I love how the scene came out. This is
the
another one of our prime, more blue screen than a lot of the film, but and can always be a bit tricky to try and make this whole thing work. But in terms of just the way that the lighting of it, the integration of it, and especially I think the last minute grading that Dave and Claire kind of had worked in with some of the background adjustments that were tweaked. The whole scene just really sings. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, this is like a great comp kind of
transformative
just
accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, just the comp work alone here is just perfect. I mean, you would not question it, you know.
He's just going to rebuild it.
I mean, it's one of those cases. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you got a CG ape there, but like all that work of the waves crashing there on the right, the tents and the fires in the background makes you feel like it's a real place. You just don't question it. And of course, in these angles too, but like all that water back there, that's got to get simmed. You know, all the water in the background getting splashed around and waves, and it's so taken for granted. You know, like what actually goes into this stuff. To do a simple little shot like this.
Listen to me.
Like, if we were to go and shoot on a real location, it would have been, you know, we couldn't have got the lights there. We couldn't have, it would have been a nightmare. You know, the weight, the sound, you know, that we have to probably deal with.
Yeah, you would have probably had to re-loop the whole thing.
I think this is a good example where it's like, you know, we built quite a good set, you know, a good piece of a set here. It's not just, they're not like on a blue screen stage. We're actually outside, you know, with real movie lights, and we lit it the way we would a real location. But we just kind of saved ourselves the hell of trying to do it, you know, in a real spot like this. I don't know. I enjoy that kind of stuff where it's a good mix of lots of different departments kind of contributing to the end result, you know.
You're gonna learn.
And then, yes, she really jumped on him. Jewel, she's not sure this was going to work, this shot. But I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. It's a little bit fancy for this movie, language-wise, I think, but I dig
awesome.
how long it is. It just holds, you know. And Bill was awesome. He did a great job, just like...
I enjoy the sound of it.
Yeah. And that last one, it's like Jabba the Hutt, you know, getting choked by Princess Leia.
A tiny little visual effect of having to put in Freya's tear from another take.
So in take 2, she actually did have a little tear that dropped. And so the take 1 was the best one. But I was like, Eric, can we put that in? Because it's kind of cool. I'm not sure we should have done it, but whatever. She cries a lot in this movie. You got to stay on message. But you can see how we kind of cut it. That's a lot of times how we see the movie, where it's like it's a clean plate we have to use, but we'll put a window of the performance that we want in there. And you judge the movie that way for months and months until the shots kind of roll in. So this is your day for night, Eric.
Sure is. Yeah, we I think this is like the last day or the day before the last day. Had been pushing to get some kind of a drone plate to use for this, because we had just this wealth of Sydney coastline that was just perfect for this stuff, and finally, you know, got the whole drone thing arranged and got out there, and it was just perfect conditions, overcast, but also really big swell, which just gave us a really nice day for night.
And all this is a stage situation that's right next to the last set you just saw on the parking lot. Basically, we built this thing and just threw dump tanks at them, you know, and there's a couple takes we actually had to cut out, but where she just got wiped out by this huge thing of water, and like she just disappears in the frame, and then you find her down at the bottom, just like soaked like a wet cat, you know what I mean? It was wild.
What? I mean, this scene is a great example of just the marriage of practical water and digital water, where, you know, we actually had, you know, Will and his special effects team. They brought these 2 big dump tanks that they could aim and target Freya specifically, so you could completely douse her, and then have the perfect thing for us to then tie in.
And that marriage is great, because I mean, all the stuff that they're stepping in, and like that's all CG water, but you just can't tell. You can't tell. This stuff was cool. Like, as you can see, like they actually climbed. They actually did it, but obviously not in that location.
Yeah.
And they're
the climbing bit, obviously we're taking, you know, Owen's performance. He's got his motion capture suit under the blue cover here so that we could, you know, extract bits and pieces of Freya where necessary. But the real challenge with every one of these shots is its own jigsaw puzzle. That again, Stephen
CG
Hunter
body
his
sometimes,
team.
right?
Yeah, sometimes it's only Freya's face. Sometimes it's her upper torso. Sometimes we do a blend down the
Like
leg.
that shot right there. That shot will be unappreciated for how complicated, and usually those shots do not work.
And then Eric, this was your favorite, right? Because it's the
There's a little switch
CG,
that happens.
and then the white brings us to real.
Yeah.
But
thanks, Anaya, for the.
But yeah, that last shot though, people don't appreciate this, the interaction, and like that's usually where for me those kinds of shots that always break down. You can always see the seams, but you guys did it there. It's great looking. I like this shot.
This was another case where we had tried a few different skies back there, and
Yeah.
it quickly got too fancy.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the real a few occasions of us being able to use real flame in that previous shot.
But here, no real fire. Then we go into
CG torches.
Yeah, our LED torches that they carried around. And also notice here that the on-set work of the detail of the texturing of the thing wasn't quite there. And so you guys at Weta kind of painted in all this extra kind of like grime and grunge on texture on the surfaces of the thing. So every one of those shots, you're basically touching it in a really significant way, and it makes a big difference.
To really help sell the idea that minerals have been leaching through the concrete for a couple of centuries.
And you'll see in the deleted scenes, we finished a little chunk here, a little joke where Noah accidentally burns the ass of Suna. It's a great little scene. He's got to get cut for time, but it got finished. But all the little soot that kind of got painted back onto the set from the fire that wasn't real, and it's pretty awesome. This location was actually a working generator room for a big museum or something, and obviously couldn't have real fire, but also we couldn't shut off the generators. So all the sound in here, it was just, we had to leave every 15 minutes because it was so loud down there. But it looked cool.
Averaging about 95 decibels.
Yeah. But it looked cool. So that's like, all that kind of sound obviously is not, we didn't record sound. And we suddenly switched to a parking lot, our parking garage at the Olympic Stadium in Sydney. And I heard something about like Fincher was looking at this place to do 2000 Leagues Under the Sea at one point or something. I can't remember, but it had been looked at before for movies, and we kind of ran with it because it just felt like it kind of could work. And so obviously you guys had to put in, rooms and floors up there, but it had a good starting point to shoot something for real.
Yeah. Art department gave us one false wall down one corridor, and that's kind of, set the scene for the kind of things we should expect to see on each of these levels. Yeah.
And it has this kind of cool underground feel bunker, even though what's really out there is just open sky and Sydney. It's kind of wild. Yeah. So that's one of the few cases we have real fire.
The parking garage is one of the few places we could actually do real fire.
Yeah, but then here we couldn't, right? Yeah, it's awesome. But then this is a paint out nightmare because all the fog and the glow, and you guys had to paint all that out because there was no way to do clean plates here.
No way. And
yeah.
We did.
We tried it. We tried it at an approach here where we essentially had somebody walk a torch through the path of where the actors were, kind of painting the room with light to see if we could give ourselves a means to restore or do a CG version or digital version or projected version of the room. But ultimately, the easiest thing for these was just to, unfortunately, use the performance.
Yeah. This sound here was actually taken from the 1968 original sound for any fans who care.
We re-archived the dub and we stole it directly from the stems.
Yeah, this was another room in that environment that we're in with that museum. We're just some weird room that we just quickly dressed and turned into this little server room thing.
Yeah, Powerhouse Museum.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, but I love this stuff because I feel like we were just kind of shooting. Kind of like Maze Runner days, just kind of seat of our pants, just kind of going. I liked how raw it feels, The lighting's really cool
Visual
too.
effects wasn't there to slow you down.
That's right, exactly. Even though you guys touched some of them. There's a couple times where we got that, where we just like, we'll get to it, where the vault gets opened, where we were kind of just not doing clean plates, and it was great. We were just shooting, and it felt like making a normal movie again. But obviously, you guys had to deal with all the repercussions of that.
So somebody on the internet was trying to figure out what the significance was of the number on the drive there.
Oh yeah, interesting.
That's crazy.
That's good. Let them run with it.
Yep.
Again, just another enhancement on the book.
Yeah, it wasn't quite decayed enough.
Wasn't moldy enough.
Yeah, so that's another case where it's a real book. It's just you're figuring out how to get the actors in there, or the apes on top of there.
One of those perfect cases where, I mean, let's use what we have. I mean, to build an incredibly high resolution prop like this in CG just for 1-2 shots would have been silly when we have exactly what it needs to do. Just need to make it work with the performance.
It's a great shot of Suna there too.
It's also just a great, visual storytelling with no audio basically, and it gives you everything.
Yeah, it tells everything you know. It's
everything you need to know, which is I love when that happens.
Yeah, you don't need to say anything. Yeah, it's fun. And like that kind of sense of tension here, the two species it's not going to be an easy coexistence because they just kind of can't trust each other in a weird way. There's lots of like bubbling stuff in this scene, this little moment here. It's a cool shot. And this was a stage
7. Yeah.
Stage 7. Where obviously we got to use a lot of what was real, which you can see there. It's actually a good chunk of it is real. It's not CG. We just had to extend it and deal with the ceiling essentially. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool location. So yeah, I think that people will be surprised that actually was real. We actually built this. So it wasn't just a big CG blue screen.
Yeah, exactly.
This was a giant set. That actually
interesting looking stage interior.
Yeah, and that's a stage, but this is actually out at the environment where the door was. So we're actually outside right now. We built the other end of the door, and there's just this kind of scaffolding overhead that kind of blocked the sunlight out. So that's all this stuff right here is real, like on location. So not even on a stage. It's kind of a nightmare because the sound was crazy, but it's kind of fun to how we kind of seam all these worlds together. It's a giant set too. Ian Gracie kind of built for us. Kind of well-known guy in Australia for art director.
But the door, all-around top bloke.
That's right. And but the doors actually worked. It's like we opened that up, and that world out there is actually where we first saw Noah walk into the camp. It's cool how it's all tied. We put blue screen, of course, but blocked the light a little bit. But this is that scene where the camera is very active and spontaneous, and like we just had 2 cameras going, and we shot the scene, and we kind of didn't really worry about the clean plate thing of it all because we were going to be able to. You did your little photogrammetry thing of the set, so because it's mainly all apes except for this shot, for instance.
Yeah, this was one of the few locations in the movie that actually had a pretty straightforward ish to reconstruct background. So if we just said, all right, no clean plates for this one,
so
the look on your face was great.
But you feel it in the scene too. It feels very like it's happening. It's kind of just slowly happening. You know what I mean? It's all handheld and it feels very raw, which I love. And then of course you have a couple shots like these where May's there, but
Maybe it's cool enough. What's your face? It's good.
To watch all the actors here, like Kevin and Ika there, and Owen, of course, and the rest, the whole gang. We would just do these long takes. We'll just go. We would just. It felt very much how we do kind of Maze Runner, where it's like we were just kind of like letting magic kind of happen. Yeah,
it's just the serendipity of the choices of the actors on the day and how the operator dances with them throughout this whole thing. It's like trying to reconstruct that.
Yeah, you just wouldn't be able to do
motion control or via a camera operator trying to retrace their steps when there's nobody there in the frame.
Or we'll be there for days. We'd be there for days trying to cover this in a traditional way.
Yeah.
especially because there's so much dialogue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can get lost in even the shooting of it just because it's so much.
But I mean, just the way that the whole thing is just built together, just built to this really beautiful tension as it goes and goes and goes, and then
right,
like the gunshot.
But usually it's me just over a bullhorn yelling at him, and here comes the flood, run! So I'm all over the takes. But it just, I don't know. You got to do it somehow. You kind of herd cats, basically. They're all kind of seeing different things that aren't really there. All they have is their imagination, and it's kind of fun. I love that shot there. Like Proximus is smiling. He's like, he doesn't care about his little henchman. It's just like, oh, I want one of those. I guess maybe Trevathan didn't tell him about guns. Maybe, I don't know. He's genuinely surprised by that thing, that cannon that she's holding. A hand cannon.
In there.
Like that's the kind of, to me, the thing there. That's what she fears most, is apes getting the upper hand. If there's anything that can bring humans back to the top, it's going to be their tools. And I'm sure we'll play with that more in the future. That idea, humans are nothing without their tools. Whether those tools are nuclear weapons or whatever.
Yeah. Interesting, that shot of Owen a couple of shots back. You can kind of see the choice to change the angle so we're slightly more frontal on him than we were on Owen
right.
today.
Yeah, occasionally we can do that, right? We can just can you just move the camera around here? Obviously, it's all CG. We didn't blow anything up for real. But we shot the plate, right? You can see that's our set. But so much of it is just, might as well just be, and probably was completely redone.
Yeah, replaced, but we're using the actual camera move from that.
Yeah, it gives you something, right, to anchor you.
Yeah.
And this took a while to get, but it's pretty cool.
Took a few stabs at this one just to try and get the performance of that water splashing, art direction wise, just working.
It's really difficult stuff, but it looks awesome. But I love that for that first shot, we actually are out of focus. That's a good that shot there where we kind of invented a new camera move that was even better, where we kind of dropped down, into the shot. That was really fun. Another good example where we shot something real, but so much of it's just replaced. This shot, I think, is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's
just looks real. I mean, just looks like we did it.
The thing that of the water work that was done, this is probably one of the most epic moments that we can see in the movie, but surprisingly, the sim work for this actually came together. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it came together easier than I would have expected it to.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, this is also one of the challenges in the cutting room too, because you really,
how do you cut this?
Really truly have to think, because I didn't even have any of this previs.
Yeah, for a while we're just saying, I shot like this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were just like, okay, it's going to be, okay, he rushes in.
Also, I think the previs team there at Weta too, they deserve a lot of credit here, because they really helped kind of shape this too. These moments. And trying to figure out, by this point, I think a lot of them, again, kind of knew my sensibilities and trying to come up with good shots that kind of sustained themselves,
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thing where we had captured bits and pieces of this, something like this and something like that. Where,
and it had some storyboards for a lot of it too.
Yeah,
but it really had to be invented, over months.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the other aspect of it as well is obviously we had, again, as I mentioned before, we had a bunch of concept art to build on, or at least to inform what this place might want to look like. But a lot of this was sort of discovered between our animation and our layout teams. Look at that water. In terms of how it needed to look, because we didn't really have a set plan to build from or anything like that, because that, we didn't know what the shape of the scene was going to be. At that time.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully people don't even think about it. Like, this is all CG. We shot that's a real location there, but then that gets replaced. It might as well be full CG. But all this stuff, there was no set. We didn't build any of this. No water. If we did, it would have added months to the shoot, or something.
Yeah, and those were some of the early conversations around with special effects as well. It's like, well, what do you need us to do when we're shooting in the car park, for example? Don't bring anything. We don't want to flood the car park to the amount of water.
It'd be a waste of effort.
Try and figure out how to bring the reset time. And then most importantly, all of our actors are not
Yeah.
shape of their apes, and
Right.
any interaction that we would have gotten would have been throwaway anyway. So,
Yeah, thankfully you
it's
guys did
just
Way
needed
of
to be-
Water, and you kind of
bite the bullet.
yeah, you figured out how to do this water, and then we pushed it, I think, to even further. Just the amount of just crazy complex. Look at that shot. I mean, it's wild. This shot coming up when you pop out of the water right here is my favorite. That's just great. That looks real. I mean, that's just amazing work. Incredible stuff. All this stuff. I mean, I just don't think people understand what they're seeing here. You know, no, we didn't shoot any of this. Like, there's nothing here. This is all CG, but it's great. The cameras
So
feel
the
very
effect-
grounded. You know, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, the effects team on this one, led by Frederick Video, and just the various effects artists that worked on these shots. The art direction, the ability to art direct moments of this were just
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
They just did such a phenomenal job with being able to hit the notes.
Yeah.
Because each one of these water sims is at the lowest, like an overnight thing, but
Yeah.
typically multiple days to iterate these things.
Yeah.
You know, the shot that's coming up here is Silva drowns. You know,
Yeah.
the water pouring in, like we had very
Months, right?
specific things that we were chasing, and we just kept, you know, like, not quite. See, we can change this, tweak that, change this, tweak
Like, look
that.
at
And
that.
then right here, you know, Ayako
It's
Kuroda,
wild.
top marks, just art directed that to the exact frame that we wanted his face to disappear is when she managed to get the water to make his face
Yeah,
disappear. It was
it's amazing.
so good.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. I don't think people will appreciate what they're seeing there because
No.
it's not actually really super fancy and like over the top spectacle. You know, it just feels like, we shot a scene, you know, but the effort there, the technical effort there is just insane, you know? Yeah, it's cool stuff. And then we get into this scene. And this was another one of those scenes where we just kind of were shooting, you know, we kind of shot it very quickly with not a lot of care for clean plates and stuff. And it has that same kind of raw sort of feel, but you can see the parking lot that we're on, like in the background there, you can see the different sets that we had. There's just one parking lot. We did it all.
Potts Hill.
Yeah. It's where they did a lot of Shang-Chi or something, all the sets there. It's just this gigantic old, aquifer or something?
Yeah, it used to be a reservoir.
Reservoir.
Sydney, but, I think Thor shot there, and
Right.
I think Fury Road did some bits and pieces there as well.
Yeah, you see there, that was actually the stunt double who was doing a lot of the stuff. For whatever reason, Kevin wasn't available at that moment. But then he comes back in, of course, and we reshoot him on the set to get his facial and stuff. But you know, there Kevin's really, you know, pulling Owen there. He's strong enough to do it.
Yeah, we're really throwing people around too. I mean, like those stunt guys,
Yeah.
those are hard hits, man.
You so
And you can see we're, you know, putting lines in faces sometimes where it wasn't the case. We have that power, you know, kind of amazing. But again, it has this kind of cool handheld. Like I hadn't seen this in the previous Apes movies, you know, where it kind of feels like we're just barely getting it, you know. It's cool vibe.
Yeah, it's very much like a finding shots sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of your
Sky outside of Weta. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We'll use a rubber band and super glue if we have to.
Exactly. Again,
All
you
that
know,
spit and stuff. Awesome. It's awesome.
but no camera boom on his face. So all this is just hand done. It's amazing.
And it's a multi-tiered process here where he obviously Owen did his thing, but we didn't have exactly the right melody. So he did what he thought what kind of was, and then he had to come back and then redo the voice and the singing thing, and with all the kind of effort and strain that it needed. So it was a big back and forth, this whole thing here. You can see how we're just chopping pieces in and out, you know, just to kind of like, we didn't necessarily have to do it, but because we could.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And we're just like, Eric, sorry. Paul, sorry. Like this kind of shot, that shot we kind of invented, right? I thought it would be a cool idea to go from his face to that shot, you know, and they figured out how to make that work. It's really fun.
But like this whole singing thing, you know, again, like you said, on the day, Owen did something, you know, something kind of similar to what we were going for. But then John and Ted Kaplan, our music editor, worked tirelessly with just trying to get
we gave them a version of the scene, and then they figured out basically a soundtrack that would fit the scene that still felt like done by voice.
Right.
And then we just start basically 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's just we find our way through it over
Because
months.
again, it's musical, right? So it has to be within a certain, musical cadence. So it was close. The edit was close, but you definitely are going back and forth a little bit. Like, hey, can we get a little, like, I need like 6 more frames here, but can we take off 20 frames
Also, it's
here?
worth mentioning that there's no birds in this movie. It's all
zero.
CG. We didn't have any real birds. We had a bird show up on early just to kind of have reference for ourselves.
And prep, yeah.
Yeah. But it was fun.
All the water that we're seeing out there, the horizon, all this stuff looking down. This is, I shot that myself with a little consumer drone down in the Catlins in New Zealand.
It's awesome. Love that we're doing that giant, movie. And we're putting people on like deck chairs and using consumer grade equipment, but who cares? Whatever gets it done, baby. Yeah. Yeah, and even here, like you can see where, like I'm just, hey, can you give me a little push in there? Because like I couldn't do it on the day because we're handheld and we're flying by the seat of our pants, and like I love that we can do that occasionally. Just give it a little bit more kind of razzle dazzle. Yeah, I really am going to be spoiled when I go back to non, CG apes movies. This was great though. This was fun.
Sad Wes in the cutting room.
What?
On a real movie.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, I can't change it.
We can't do that.
The kid in the mask there was an ad that we begged for. It works out so well. It's so cute. Little kid playing with a playing marauder in the background, chasing other apes around. But I guess there's something about like that's a long ass shot.
Yeah.
But I like it. It sinks you into it. I gotta whatever.
A little bit of the beginnings of a wall there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I added that in. That was a Dirk ask. He really wanted to see that sense that they're thinking differently now as a clan. They're not the same anymore.
Yep.
And I think you see that embodied in this scene. Noah's not the same character you began with. He's, you might say, been stained by what he's learned about humans.
For sure.
And what apes are also capable of. He's not innocent anymore.
Maximus was right.
And here's a perfect example of a scene sort of created in the cutting room because the original intent of this scene was that she was there to kill him.
Well, sort of. I mean, she was certainly wrestling with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But she more explicitly raised the gun, I guess. But we felt like it was just too much, and we kind of kept it more simple. But
this was Frey's first day on the job.
That's the thing that's so crazy. It's like for her to have to do this scene basically on one of her first days on the movie. It was unfortunate. It's so not what you want to do to an actor. But just because of the schedule of when we were leaving this location, this really difficult location to get to, we had to do it. So it's a shame. But yeah, we went on this scene back and forth on this scene quite a lot, trying to find it. And it's all out of the pieces that we shot. But
yeah, totally.
But it really transformed in editing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
in a big way.
Originally, the even the gun reveal had
come earlier.
So many different positions within the scene until we landed on where ultimately we ended up putting it.
Yeah, just to try to find it. Find something that felt like it was saying the right things.
Yeah. Again, no face boom and having to get, that kind of, these are heavy performances and very nuanced performances to try to get with no face cam. But just amazing.
Yeah, I think that was one of those things where, unfortunately, I had made the call on the day to take the boom off because
they were hugging.
Played the scene all the way through to the end where they actually hug each other.
And this was so early in the shoot. I hadn't learned yet, quite how to handle this stuff. But in hindsight, I would have done it differently. But yeah, this whole movie was a giant learning experience. Really, I mean, just the level of technical kind of difficulty on this thing was more than I was. I went in thinking this is gonna be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of knew enough to be dangerous about it all, but it turned out to be much more difficult than I realized.
Yeah. I should also shout out Mark G. was our visual effects supervisor for
Yes, that
a
last
number of bits
yeah.
and pieces throughout here. We spun up a fourth team, sort of midway through the process when we realized we really kind of wanted some extra firepower at Weta on the show. And so Mark G and our animation supervisor on this stuff, Paul Ramsden, that last scene we're just looking at with May and Noah, and they took the campfire scene with Noah and Raka earlier on, the observatory, like bits and pieces throughout the film.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the stuff that we're about to see coming up, and just did a really fantastic job. A lot of that stuff was a lot of our artists in Melbourne actually working on this stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, so a lot of the stuff, like we shoot the reference for it, but it ultimately kind of gets replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's one non-VFX shot.
Hey.
Wasn't there? Doesn't it count? I didn't see Logan's little.
That was, yeah, it's in the upper right corner.
It was. Yeah, and this is I begged Deechin to come in and play this role. People know her from Severance and other movies. But I just wanted a sense of a character that you felt like, wait a minute, I recognize her. She's important somehow. Even though she's in it for very little of the movie, it kind of just gave you a sense that this is just the beginning of hopefully something much bigger that has to do with, it was interesting that we start the movie from an ape's point of view, and you think it's a story about an ape named Noah. And by the end of the movie, you realize there's actually a story about an ape named Noah and a human named May. And May is the thing that literally a door opens to a whole new world that we'll get to explore in future movies if we're lucky. Fingers crossed.
Non-VFX.
Yeah. This little room here was built on that stage where the flood happened and they were walking through the tanks. It was just a little room right off the corner of the stage there. So if you didn't have that blue screen there, you'd see the same stage walls. But yeah, this stuff came together pretty quick for the most part. It must be much longer, I guess. But once John kind of found this track that felt like there was the right sense of hope, but also like, I don't know, a sense of darkness too somehow.
Of what's to come potentially, yeah.
Once we got it, we can kind of really cut to it. You know what I mean? Because it's very much driven by the music. This little sequence, but yeah, we actually went out and shot that stuff out and wherever it was we went, Eric.
The Monaro Plains.
Which is beautiful. I mean, we had so much good footage there that will never be seen, but like maybe we'll hold it for some other things. But this thing was the only sticky thing. And the studio had ideas for what needs to be said here. Everyone had different ideas. We eventually arrived at this. But yeah. But again, this last shot of Noah, is key to me because you think about the first frame of the movie with Caesar's face, and how similar it is to the last frame of Noah here, but he's different. He's changed. He's not that innocent young ape anymore. Like what the future holds, we shall see.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Anything else we want to say?
There we go.
I mean, just a major thanks to everybody that worked on the film. For sure. I mean, all the people on it.
All the people you see here on these credits. I mean, I imagine the people who watch this special feature are the ones that would watch credits and give all the support to these incredible people that really were so committed and so like devoted to making something special and trying our hardest, to do something that was kind of worthy of this franchise that's been going on since 1968. We're the 10th movie in this crazy legacy of movies. And I don't know, for me, it was a real honor to work with such great, awesome people.
That was amazing.
One of our better experiences, I think.
For sure. And people don't realize, this movie from start to finish, I mean, we're talking like 80-something weeks on the movie. I mean, just for actual production. I mean, I know you've been on it for almost 5 years, but, just from an editorial standpoint, coming on, in October of 2022 and having it come out, May, 2024, it's one of the longest projects I've ever been on, but every single day I can tell you did not get boring at all.
Yeah, that's right. It's always fun. Always something.
There's a sadistic part of me that will miss our 8-hour Weta conversations daily.
Yeah.
to go through animation and shots and everything.
Eric
but,
won't miss them.
I was going to say that the urban legend, the 8-hour. I don't know if we ever got 8 hours.
We did.
but
Oh,
yes,
yes,
they
we
were,
did.
No,
We
we
did.
did.
Yeah, we kept track
They
of
were
that
long
stuff.
and plentiful.
They weren't always, but yeah, we'd have several of those that were just like, oh my god, we went for a long time. We're just basically we remotely do this stuff where Eric and Weta Team is over in New Zealand, and where we've got our little like kind of setup and an editorial where we share a screen together, basically a big screen, and we just sit there and talk through the shots and pick apart pixels basically, and try to make this stuff look as good as it possibly can. So
no, but just a huge shout out again. Thanks for my whole team on my behalf, and Dirk, who's not here with us today, but I knew who would have a lot to say. But just incredible collaboration with everybody, and really just one of the more enjoyable projects I've ever been on in my whole career. So thank you.
Yeah, and to the cast and everyone else.
I was thinking like, we saw our stunt team just scroll up the screen there, and like working with them, with Glenn and his whole team. That was fantastic experience. I mean, just generally speaking, all these names rolling up the screen right now, like our entire Australian crew was just a joy.
Fantastic,
to work with. I mean, from a visual effects standpoint, I mean, going back years and years and years, I'm like, there's often been this almost
tension.
Antagonistic,
Right?
Yeah, between film crews and visual effects crews, and I did not feel that on this show. Like everybody was, just our grip team with Toby and just the electrics. Everybody was just pulling, on the same team. And really,
takes an army,
shows.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess with that, we can leave this with you guys. Thank you all for watching, and
hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, see you on the next one
for sure.
Together strong.
Yeah, Apes Together Strong.